Hi everyone, hope you're well. Chris Cowlin here. Now, before we get into it, I'd just like to inform you about a new website selling quality current and retro Spurs jerseys, okjersey.com. They sell all current and retro Tottenham Hotspur shirts in all sizes. They sell the current fan and player versions, as well as the 80s and 90s retro shirts, including my very favourite, the 1991 FA Cup final shirt. You can order very easily from okjersey.com, and if you use the code Chris, you will receive an 8% discount off your final order. You can also use the QR code on the top left of your screen. And by the way, they also have some training wear here and the 25-26 colour special edition jersey. Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well, and welcome back to another edition of The Fan Show. My name is Chris Cowlin, and this evening I'll be joined by a number of Spurs fans from all around the world talking about everything Tottenham Hotspur. Now, if you'd like to get involved in a future episode, please do send me an email. It's tottenhamfanchris@gmail.com, and it will be great to talk to you. I'm going to go to our first guest straight away. There is so much to discuss in this episode. Of course, Spurs lost 3-2 away at Bournemouth on Wednesday evening. Christian Romero posted on social media aiming a big dig at the club's board. More boos for Thomas Frank at the end of the game. Spurs are down to 14th in the Premier League table. We are 6 points above 17th, where we finished last season under Ange Postecoglou, and we are 6 points away from 5th place. Now, Thomas Frank has also provided an injury update ahead of the Aston Villa game on Saturday in the FA Cup. Bergvall, we will know more soon. Bentancur has a hamstring issue. Mohamed Kudus, tendon in the quad. He will be out until after the March international break. A huge blow for Thomas Frank. He has also stated that Kulusevski and Maddison are also out. Udogie and Solanke are progressing, and they are getting closer. Now let's go to the first guest. We're going to go to Harry. Harry, evening. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Apart from Spurs, how are you doing?
Yeah, very good, Harry. Yeah. I'll tell you what, I wanted a day off. So many people contacted me today and said, Chris, you've got to do a fan show. Harry, how are you feeling? How are you feeling overall? Because all those things that I just read out, Spurs down to 14th, Thomas Frank being booed, the players going over to the away end at the end of the game, Pedro Porro, Mickey van der Ven, Polinia went over as well, but he was trying to calm things down. What do you make of all of this?
It's not nice, is it? I think it's a big disconnect from the fans in the stands to the players on the pitch. I think right now, because we're in the moment, it's easy to go, look, it's just Thomas Frank that's a problem, or this is something new. I think, since we got to, in my opinion, the 2019 Champions League final, I think for various different reasons, we've gone backwards. I think poor decisions from managers in terms of sacking and appointing. I think also poor decisions from the board, from the owners, from the hierarchy that have put us in this position now where there is such a big divide. And you just see clips as well, Chris, which I'm sure you would have seen on social media as well, when the players turn up, to the Vitality yesterday. There's no acknowledgement for those fans that stand in the cold and made decently long journeys, especially the younger fans as well. Only Richarlison out the whole entire Tottenham squad, including all the coaching staff as well, stopped. So little things like that will annoy fans.
Romero and Richarlison. I was right there, Harry. So both of them did stop, yeah.
There we go. So yeah, just two there, and it's not good enough. But yeah, right now it's frustrating. Again, I like to look at the bigger picture, and I think we look at yesterday. It's frustrating. It's fine margins. It's costing us, which makes it even more frustrating. But no, we're not in a great place. But hopefully that can change quickly. If you look at the table, for example, as a lot of people know, a couple of results, and all of a sudden you're instantly back at kind of top 7, top 8. So hopefully we can get it back on the road. But a lot needs to change.
Harry, what do you make of Romero's comments? Because I think it was just past midnight that he posted these comments on Instagram, aiming a huge dig at the board. I know some people said, it was a cryptic message. What on earth does it mean? I think it's very clear to most of us that it was a real dig at the board. Thomas Frank was asked in his press conference today ahead of the Villa game about these comments, and he has stated that him, together with Johan Langer, have sat down with Christian Romero, and, the club are aligned. He was then asked the question later on in the press conference, is Christian Romero aligned with certain board members and the hierarchy? And Thomas Frank replied and said, well, you'd have to ask him. What do you make of these comments? Is it right for a player to post comments like this?
I think firstly, it's important to note this isn't the first time it's happened. I think it's crystal clear what he meant, and we had it before, and he had to come out and apologise for it to happen to a second time. Tells you this is how he genuinely feels, which I think is a good thing. And some things he said, and a lot of things that go on at the moment, are difficult to hear and difficult to understand. But I think they need to be, understood and accepted. I think what he said is spot on. I find it hard to disagree. We hear like you get Jan Langer, then also Fabio Paratici. They sit down and go, and Vinay said it as well. There'll be regular updates throughout the season. You'll hear from us when things go wrong, when things go right. You'll hear from us, and we've had no updates so far. There would have absolutely been at least 2 updates if things were looking a little bit better. We weren't so low in the table. We were playing a bit better than we were. So that things is frustrating, and the players get the criticism, the managers get the criticism. But I just feel because it's a slightly new look board. There's some faces that are new. There's some that have been kicked out. Levy's been thrown under the bus. It feels like they've been treated, in my opinion, by fans as new owners. That's absolutely not the case. I think, of course, it's still the Lewis family. It's still Enoch. The board is still incompetent, in my view. I think there's that same ambition there, which is close to non-existent. It's that same aim. And, I think what Romero said is spot on. Of course, you've got to be careful what you say as club captain, but also maybe it gives you a little bit more license to have your say. And, Romero has taken his criticism at times this season, as along with Frank. So I get his frustration. He's thinking, hang on a minute, I and my teammates have been criticised. Why are upstairs not taking this? Because we even already sold Brennan Johnson, Tottenham's top scorer last year, the guy who got the goal that won us ultimately, factually, the Europa League, and he's haven't been replaced yet. We didn't replace Son in the summer. So a lot of what he said, if not all, was true. And it's a shame, Thomas Frank has to come out and say, of course, because of his position, that it was a mistake. I think it wasn't a mistake at all. I think Romero's spot on. And that, post is still up. It's been edited, but it's still up.
Yeah, it has been edited. He edited out to tell a few lies when saying they only show up when things are going well, to tell a few lies. So those 5 words taken out of the of that statement released last night. Harry, where do you stand on Thomas Frank right now? Because I've got to admit, me going to the home games and away games, I feel like the majority of fans have given up on Thomas Frank. Where do you stand?
I'd agree with that. I think it's been recent, though. We've seen the last kind of 2 to 3 weeks. I think generally we've seen like a few boos. It's gone now to regular boos, in particular aimed at Thomas Frank. I think it's easy to look at where we are now because, we should be in a better position, absolutely. But it goes back to the whole thing that Romero is saying. For me, it is upstairs. And although I'm frustrated with the owners, frustrated with the board, it doesn't give Frank kind of a free license or free will to not be criticised. He has to take that criticism. But I'm under the impression, I look at Bournemouth, for example, this is how I see it. I don't think we're perfect. It's not a performance boom up here, but I thought we were competitive. And I think the first 2 goals that Bournemouth score are through poor marking, lapses in concentration. Some things is on the manager, like who's marking who. But I think as players and as a squad and as 11, there has to be some initiative there. And listen, this is the same thing we're saying, and we have done under previous managers where we're going, look, lapses in concentration, individual error here. For example, giving away possession too easily. That was something people said under Mourinho, under Conte. So many different managers. So for me, I don't think the manager is the problem at Tottenham. I would give Thomas Frank the January window. I would also allow him, unless things catastrophically get worse, hopefully not, that I would also allow him to have some of these big players talking about Kudus in March, Kulusevski and Maddison. I think right now, Chris, lastly, that we've been more defensive because of the players we've got out. I think that's naturally the right thing to do. Frank was the right manager. Still think this, to come in after Ange to, kind of bring about, a sensible kind of way of playing football that's really balanced. But I think we've been more defensive because of the players we've got out. And right now, there's no creativity, no attacking quality. And I love our front line of, Odebear, Tell and Richarlison, for example, Moani, whoever it may be, in many ways. But it's not top 6 level. I think he's been let down upstairs, in my view. And I think I would give him the benefit of the doubt. I would give him time, but things have to turn around. I think the problems are a lot deeper than him, Chris, a lot deeper.
In the press conference today ahead of the Villa game, he was asked about being given more time. He said, no doubt about that. He said, this is a tough spell. We will get through this. How do you see this panning out, Harry? And do you think that it's fair, the criticism that he himself, Thomas Frank, has, a lot of criticism has been aimed solely at him. And when I've seen in recent games, the fans have been booing everyone as a collective. But the Brentford away game, the boos for him individually were really loud, and exactly the same at Bournemouth last night.
They were. I think, of course, you've got to take criticism. I think everyone can be in agreement with this. When you sit 14th in the table, a club like Tottenham Hotspur, we won the Europa League last year, which is a huge achievement. But in the end, it did kind of, cover up some of the cracks because we finished 17th and struggled. I just think generally we've fallen into a trap right now, and this would be unpopular to say, where we are becoming like a mid-table club without an identity. It is an Everton as well, with a rich history and kind of struggling to find our feet and not really going anywhere. And I think it's a top-down approach is a problem at Tottenham. But of course, Thomas Frank has to take the criticism, for the teams that he put out, tactics, formation. And I would say, for example, that Brentford game, we didn't look good. It was a ball fest. Both teams setting up clearly happy with a draw. And that is how the standards have dropped, absolutely. And you can't accept that. I would also say that Brentford put four past, I should say, Bournemouth in the previous game. And Thiago, for example, 2 goals against Everton. They look really good going forward. We held them to that. I just think actually we've looked okay defensively, but the numbers don't back that up, because in the end, pressure tells in football, because it's constant pressure on our back line because we haven't got the attacking firepower or depth going forward. So I would love to look at it right now and go, boom, this is reactionary. The easy option is to get rid of Frank, start again. But I think, again, you just go backwards again. With so many different managers at this football club since 2019, the biggest decision, biggest problem was to get rid of Pochettino. He asked for a rebuild, didn't get it. And Frank, for me, has similar characteristics as Pochettino. There's no excuse, of course, of, losing games constantly, playing bad constantly. But I'd also look at the players we've got out, the lack of players maybe we brought in the summer, the players we missed out on. We just don't spend and, in particular, don't recruit like top 6 teams. I don't think our squad is as good as we think we are. And Frank also, lastly, Chris, gets a lot of criticism, because of his style, yes, which I think has been forced mainly by the changes. I think he's a generally adaptable, fairly adaptable manager, not just defensive. But I just think it's just incredibly, frustrating that we're in this situation. And I think, Frank, for me, I would give him the benefit of the doubt. He's got to be careful with his comments, but he does say things how I want to hear them. I would rather be told the truth. I like Tange a lot, an awful lot, as you will know, but, he often, used to pretend everything was okay. I mean, you can respect the club's past, which Frank generally does do. He's got to be careful again with the way it comes across, but he's saying it how it is. He's saying there's problems right now. We're not the club of the old. Finished 17th last year. He's saying it how it is. It hurts. I think Spurs fans can't accept that with the football they're seeing, but I think he's saying it how it is. And I am behind him, but I get why people aren't. That makes sense. It's got to change, of course, and it could get worse before it gets better, starting with this weekend against Aston Villa.
Harry, last question for you. Now, you remember the Antonio Conte rant away at Southampton, which, of course, turned out to be his last press conference. And you mentioned Pochettino, and it's why I bring this up. Pochettino said at the time, Spurs have this mansion and you need the furniture to put in it. I feel like we're here again with Romero, with his digs at the board. How confident are you as a Spurs fan that things will change? We will see a different type of ambition on the pitch because, yeah, we get signings through the door. But when you think, in the last 3 seasons, for example, we've sold Harry Kane, Heung-min Son, and now just offloaded Brennan Johnson to Crystal Palace. I mentioned those 3 because they are our last 3 top goal scorers in consecutive seasons. So how confident are you that we will see real quality signings through the door to help managers? Because I completely agree. We've gone through 6 different managers, including Frank, since 2019, since the new stadium opened, 3 interim appointments as well. I agree with you also that you can't keep going around in circles, and the club need to learn from past mistakes, and the recruitment needs to be a lot better as well. How confident are you that's going to change?
Firstly, we've sold our top scorer, as you will know, Chris, in the last 3 seasons, which is a problem in itself and not replaced at all, in my view. But I'm not confident, so I have absolutely, and I mean there's 0 confidence in upstairs. I just get incredibly frustrated because I think it's gaslighting of fans. I honestly do. When you give this big talk, Levy's no longer here. Like, we want to win the Premier League and Champions League. But at the same time, we as a club, as a board, as a hierarchy, are going to offer you nothing that gets us anywhere remotely close to even in managing, imagine that, rather than even making it possible. I just get really frustrated. I have no confidence that we do anything. And if we bring in a winger, that's great. But reminder, again, 3 left wingers left the club last summer. Son, who was sold permanently, Werner's loan ended, and Solomon went out on loan and now I believe has been sold. No one had come in, and Brennan Johnson, he might be replaced, or we might bring in a left winger, but it's going to be one or the other rather than both. A similar situation in the summer where we needed 2 10s or 2 attacking players, but we're only ever going to bring in one, and that's the problem. You cannot close the gap to these big teams a lot of fans' frustration is that Arsenal are up here and we're down here. That makes it difficult. Make no mistake about it. Makes it harder for Thomas Frank. People go, look at Arsenal, look at the gap. It's getting bigger and bigger between Tottenham and Arsenal. We need to act. We need to do something. And I just think Romero's right in what he says. The owners, the hierarchy, they hide away from it. I have zero confidence, Chris, that we do anything at all. It will only be, if we do anything, younger players for the future. There's just so many positions in this team that we desperately need to improve. We haven't got currently a fit right winger. We've got no quality at all or depth. They both come hand in hand in this in attack. I just think they've got blood in their hands. I'll go as far as saying that. I just say it's all these false promises. They sat down, Paratici and Langer. Everything's perfect. And Fabio Paratici is about to go to bottom of the table, Fiorentina in Serie A. Tottenham cannot be an attractive prospect if he's going all the way there, whether he be Italian or not, whether he be homesick or not. Tottenham is not, clearly as good of a place behind the scenes as we're painted it to be by the hierarchy and by the board. So I have no confidence, Chris, at all that we'll do anything at all in the January window. And I think Frank won't. I think he'll fail as someone who wants. I'm currently behind Frank. I want it to work. I think he'll fail. In fact, I think he'll be gone Sunday morning. I think we'll do nothing in the window. The window will be summed up trying to find a replacement, and we'd just do nothing at all.
He seems very confident that he's going to stay, though, Harry. So regardless of results, Thomas Frank seems very, very confident that he is going to be at Tottenham Hotspur Football Club for the long run. Can I ask very quickly? You mentioned Arsenal down the road. Do you care what type of cup Thomas Frank's drinking out of?
I mean, it was a horrible, kind of incident. And, firstly, I think the focus should be on the performance, which I think was good, decent at times, and should be mainly on the result. Because at the end of the day, I want Frank and all these things, but the result is the most important. So, results-based business. That isn't good to see. I personally think it's set up, if I'm honest with you. You've got to remember Arsenal were Bournemouth's last opponents at the Vitality. It's no excuse. Of course, Frank should be, there should be better attention to detail. You hope he has that on the football pitch. It's worrying he doesn't have it with a cup, but I believe it would have been spotted by others that haven't said anything. Again, that's concerning in itself. But I think it's complete, utter set up, because you've got to remember as well, Bournemouth fans, they don't like Thomas Frank. Goes back to, I think, a few years ago in the playoffs in the Championship, where Thomas Frank constantly used to check his watch when Brentford are winning, trying to see a game out. In the end, Bournemouth fans, they create a bit of a grudge towards Thomas Frank, and there was, of course, a lot of chants from Cherry supporters last night aimed at the day, and that's deliberate. That's come from quite a few years. So yeah, of course, it's doesn't help his case at all, does it? But it shouldn't be the focus on. I'm more concerned about all these players that are injured, are devastating, and team news today that we found out, the likes of Kudus, and not one thing positive in there. I mean, if I'm the club, I look at that and go, boom, we've got to spend money. You've got to bring in players. I know, again, it's difficult. You don't know necessarily the manager's future. That could be some of it. The fact that maybe we haven't done anything, they're not sure on it. Frank, of course, is going to say, he will be told, you're safe in the job, etc. You always get told that we have it, and then you could be gone, a week later. I'll never forget with Chelsea, for example, Enzo Maresca, 48 hours before, and saying Ruben Amorim, they're like, we're going to be here for so many years, and boom, you're just gone like that in football. But no, I have no confidence in upstairs, and of course, with that incident with the cup, it's unfortunate, but I don't think it should be talked about for too long. Just mustn't happen again. Of course, it's one of those. It looks bad, looks worse than it is without the context, and we just need to get on with the job, work our way up the table, because it is a tightly compact league, and we need to do better. Otherwise, we're just easily top six would be running away from it if they're not already. So we need to get eyes on the game, eyes on the ball, and get back to winning ways.
Get on with the job indeed, Harry. Well said. Always such a great guest. Thank you so much for joining us. And you will be joining us on the podcast again very soon. So, top man, we'll speak to you soon.
Thank you for having me, Chris. Have a good one.
Cheers. Right. We're now going to go to my good friend, Craig Dearman. Craig, good evening. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, Chris. Bit tired, but apart from that, got over last night's result. Well, I wouldn't say I've got over it, but it's Tottenham.
How are you feeling, Craig, right now? Because, of course, you hosted the Spurs Chat Podcast straight after the Bournemouth defeat. And I know, sometimes 24 hours later, you feel a little bit different than you did straight after. How are you digesting it all, and especially what Thomas Frank has said in the press conference today about injuries, in particular Mohamed Kudus, who is an important player for Spurs on that right-hand side. He's going to be out until after the March international break.
Yeah, you couldn't write it, could you? It's just, we're just cursed, aren't we? We're absolutely cursed. And you could argue that Kudus was being overplayed. He's probably just one of those injuries that's unlucky. Lots of injuries for Frank. There was lots of injuries for Ange as well. it just goes to show how weak our squad is and squad depth as well, because the team on Saturday is going to pick itself more or less, I would imagine. I feel a bit sorry for Thomas Frank that we've got all these injuries, but this has been getting worse and worse and worse. There've been little sparks here and there, but essentially, last night was kind of the last straw. You could see it with the away fans. Once you lose the away fans, we've said before, it doesn't look good for the manager. And the boos last night again, it's just not a good look. And then coupled with that today, that incident you spoke about with Harry about the cup. I mean, I bet he was like David Brent in the office when he goes to meet that woman in the pub, and he turns around and he goes, "Oh God," I reckon it was like that, because he's thinking, what else can go wrong? What else? But I agree with you. How has nobody noticed that there's an Arsenal badge on a cup? He must have walked past people. So
does it really matter? Does it really matter?
It's more embarrassing than anything else. I mean, I would have checked my cup if I'd, but perhaps he picked it up the wrong way round and the badge is on the front. And it's just typical that the badge is facing forward and somebody snapped the picture. It's bizarre. I mean, I felt sorry for him in a way with that, because he must be thinking what else can go wrong. But, surely somebody would have told him, or he'd have noticed himself. But it's just bad luck.
Let me just say before we go any further, rest in peace to two Tottenham Hotspur legends. Of course, Martin Shivers sadly passed away on Wednesday at the age of 80, having played for Spurs between 1968 and 1976. And today, sadly, we have heard about another former Tottenham Hotspur player passing away. Terry Yorath has died at the age of 75. He, of course, featured for Spurs between 1979 and 1981. So rest in peace to both of those former Tottenham Hotspur stars. Craig, let's come on to this. Fabrizio Romero has just stated in the last couple of hours that Tottenham have now agreed personal terms with Brazilian left-back Sousa ahead of a potential move. Negotiations underway with Santos as new bid is anticipated soon, with details still missing. Is this a player that you think that is going to help Thomas Frank this season, or is this a player for the future?
It's certainly going to be one for the future again, isn't it? And this wouldn't be people probably wouldn't be in such sort of uproar on X, if you can even use that as a judge, if there was other signings coming in. But there's really not many cast iron rumours floating around at the moment, and bringing in a 19-year-old left back who's got no Premier League experience from the Brazilian league is a bit underwhelming. I mean, this kid might be brilliant. He certainly has got good stats and comes highly recommended. A lot of clubs looking at him, but it's not what the fans want to see. Even though we do need a left back, it's not what the fans want to see. Is he going to come straight into the team? I would say no. So he's probably going to be loaned out at some point, you would imagine. So Spurs just need to get cracking basically in this transfer window, because I think it speaks volumes if we don't do a load, even 2 or 3 signings, because have the board got the full backing of Thomas Frank, or do they back him fully, should I say,
Beast of TH3945 writes here, Chris and Craig, do you not think Romero is an issue? Craig, when you saw these comments, of course, it has been edited. He did edit out to tell a few lies. What did you make of the statement from Romero? Do you like the fact that the club captain has actually come out, called the board out and just said, look, we deserve better? Because I've said in the last 24 hours, I just feel like Romero wants to be playing in a quality side full of quality international players all around him. Romero clearly cares about the club, clearly wants the club to do well, clearly wants to win more trophies at Tottenham Hotspur, which is music to all of our ears. We want a captain to feel like that. We want the captain to demand the best from the board and the club to drive us forward. What do you make of it?
I don't mind it, to be honest with you, because it just shows a bit of passion and honesty. I know people think Romero could be an issue with his disciplinary and all that, but should it be, should the club captain be doing that? He's basically calling out the board and people upstairs, isn't he? Is what he's saying. I don't mind. It's that he's just got it in his character, hasn't he, to do stuff like that. And it's interesting that he had a meeting today, got basically told off for writing it, and then it was changed, of course. So
yeah, it's hardly a meeting.
You're right.
I don't think he wanted to be there.
Yeah, probably right. Yeah, he got his wrist slapped a little bit by what we're led to believe. But ultimately, I personally don't mind it. You could argue all you like about should the club captain be doing it, but I think fans want to see a bit of honesty sometimes, and that certainly was honest from Christian Romero.
Craig, let's talk about football. Actually on the pitch, what did you make of the performance overall? Because how many podcasts have you and I recorded this season, certainly under Thomas Frank, and we've given such poor stats saying, we've had one shot on target, we weren't creative enough. What did you think of Tottenham in the final third, our creativeness last night in the 3-2 defeat?
Well, but the overall performance wasn't the worst of the season by far. But you got to remember that Bournemouth hadn't won in 11 games since October. You know what you're going to get with Bournemouth. They are quite open at the back, so it was quite easy to get at them. Our finishing again. We had our chances, didn't we? The Richarlison one that hit the post, he should have done better with. The brilliant save from Petrovic, the keeper, from Mickey van der Ven, and Romero headed one over. Bergvall had a couple of opportunities, so we had our chances, and we took two of them. But ultimately, you got to be able to see the game out, and we didn't do it. And it's unfortunately, the manager has to take some of the responsibility here. It's not just the players, and it's not just Thomas Frank. It's collective, and then so that opens these discussions about who is to blame, and people are blaming ENIC for not supporting the manager.
Yeah, I was going to come on to that point because Alistair Gold in the press conference today said to Thomas Frank, do you think he was protecting you? Do you think Romero was protecting you? Because does this help Thomas Frank by Romero coming out of these comments? Because Romero's literally saying, we need better players in. And, I go back to that line again, they only show up when things are going well to tell a few lies. He was also asked about, is he aligned with the club's board? And Frank said, well, you have to ask him that yourself. I know he doesn't do many media interviews, but, if you ask him, you'll find out. But does it help Thomas Frank that the captain has come out and said those comments?
Possibly. I think he was speaking about the club as a whole, and the way it's worded, you would think some form of translation tool has been used there. Perhaps, the lies bit it just sounds like a really weird sentence. I get what he's saying. It just might have come across differently from Spanish to English. I don't know. I'm just guessing.
But he has criticised the board before, Craig. This isn't the first time. Yeah,
quite, but not quite as like he did in that message. That was quite, wow, to read something like that. Yeah. Ultimately, for me, Thomas Frank's head is going to be on the block, isn't it? And this is just my opinion, but I don't think he can take this club any further. Now, yes, he's been hamstrung by injuries, and you could talk about everything about the board not supporting him, but ultimately the manager is the one that sets them up, that puts them out on the pitch, that has to inspire them. Does Thomas Frank inspire these players? I'm just sick of it. I think they should be making a change. I don't have any faith at all that we'll get a result against Villa at the weekend. It might be a nice distraction for them, and Villa might put out a bit of a weakened team because they're essentially still in the Premier League race, you could say. But when you look at our fixtures in February, that's a pretty scary run of fixtures, City, United, Newcastle and Arsenal. So it's just tough times coming up. 2 Champions League games as well in January. So, for me, time's up.
Let me demonstrate 100 rights here. Chris, you have zero patience for the painful rebuild. What have I said for you to say that? It's weird how some people really do think that they know what goes on in my head and what I think and feel about certain situations. I do think that Thomas Frank, should have done a much better job. Do I think that we would have been, or should we have been in a better position at this stage of the season? Yes. I feel like a lot of people compare us to, this season to Ange Postecoglou last season, because the season was so bad last year in the Premier League. 22 league defeats, finishing 17th. We should be in a much better position this year. Yes, I get the fact that there are a number of different issues at the club. The players need to be better, but we do also, as a football club, need to learn from mistakes. Craig, how are you feeling ahead of the Villa game on Saturday?
Not confident at all. As I say, it was always going to be a tough game anyway, even if you got a full strength team, and we've got nowhere near that. Obviously, performances at home as well, it should help you, but you can't say that it will help us. Look, it could be a complete, like I say, a breakaway from the Premier League. Often cups are like that. But I think, as Steve Dyer said in the chat there, Saturday is going to be fun. Not sure in the same way that we all want it to be, but look, you never know. But what I would say is, I've never felt as disconnected from the club as I do at the moment. I think the split in the fan base, the manager, the ENIC, the owners and everything, it's just gone. And I don't mind talking about Ange. People can say, "Oh, you're bringing up Ange again." I don't care. Those games under Ange, when he said our stadium's a nightclub, just remember what that feeling was like. And now compare that to what it's like now. It's horrendous now. They must hate it, the ownership. They must be thinking, what can we do? Personally, I think it's becoming toxic, and just my opinion, Thomas Frank needs to go and get in somebody who can try and reunite everybody back together and bring everybody back together, even if that's an interim.
It's very interesting to have Harry on first, saying that he clearly wants it to work under Thomas Frank. I want it to work under Thomas Frank as well, Craig, but I do need to see more positives, and I do need to be convinced by this manager. And interestingly, some of the comments coming in here, I would love a lot more people to get involved in these shows with a mixture of opinions, because it's nice having people on with different opinions. So if you'd like to get involved, don't just slag me off in the comments. Come on and talk to me about it, and tell me exactly how you feel. So tottenhamfanchris@gmail.com. It's funny how people literally do hide behind computer keyboards, saying this, that, and the other. Come on and actually have a chat, and come on and give me your points, especially those really behind Thomas Frank. We all want it to work as Spurs fans. We all want to be successful. But yeah, come on and tell us more. Tell us the reasons why you think it's going to work under Frank. Craig, as always, thanks so much. I'll speak to you soon.
No worries, Chris. See you later.
Cheers. Right, we're now going to go to Turkey to speak to Orchi. Orchi, good evening. How are you?
Hello, mate. Just frustrated, to say the least. We had a quick chat over the weekend, obviously after the game. You and I've spoken in the past, plenty of times. I think, yes, there are a number of issues where, Thomas Frank does deserve criticism. But again, I just have to come back to, to the ownership. And it is getting a bit boring. I'm getting bored about talking about the ownership. And obviously we've spoken before, this ownership has overseen, although, yes, at the beginning of this season, supposedly we've had a complete change. There's been a number of new people that have come in. There's been, things being moved around. We're told, obviously, Joe Lewis has walked away. Joe Lewis isn't actively kind of the owner of Tottenham Hotspur anymore. It's his children. It's his, so that's something that kind of, with Levy leaving and with this new setup, new hierarchy, that's something that kind of gave me a little bit of hope. I was thinking that hopefully we're going to see some changes, and, and fair enough. Obviously, a lot of these changes, kind of came in around about or just after the, transfer window ended. So for me, actions speak louder than words. So I think the first opportunity that this new management setup had is this window. This, yes, fair enough. Everybody says January is a difficult, month to get business done. But hey, look, Crystal Palace, they identified one of our players, our highest goal scorer from last season, and boom, right at the start of the window, Brendan Johnson was bought. So obviously business can be done. And knowing the fact that, the injury, problems that we've had, literally from the start of the season, no Kulusevski, no Solanke for pretty most of it, Maddison with a nasty injury. It was, it's always been obvious since the start of this season that we needed players. And, I expected a lot more from this hierarchy. This was their chance to show that, yes, we mean business. Yes, we mean what we say. Everybody came out, they all came out, gave interviews, said a lot of positive things, but actions speak louder than words. And here we are on the 8th of January, and we are no closer to signing. Yes, I've seen the new reports about this Sousa guy, and yeah, he might be a great kid, but he's a 19-year-old kid, whereas, we really should have been, I expected our board or whoever's in charge of transfers to, right at the start of the window, to be in there, making bids, trying to get in Premiership, proven quality players that we need to really change things up. And I haven't seen any of that. So already, I think they're failing their first test, to really show, to put money where their mouth is and show to people that they mean business, that they mean all those nice things that they said at the start of the season. They actually mean what they say, that things are going to change. We are going to be competitive. We are going to go out there. And yes, we are going to try to compete, and now we've got several more players out. We've got Kudus out. We've got obviously Bergwall out. We've got Bentancur out. Not that any of them have been setting the, place alight in recent weeks or months, but still nonetheless, I expected a lot more from this board. And I just think that, I watched some of the clips from like Talk Sport, I know you've been on Sky. I've watched your interview on Sky as well. And, people say, well, like, for example, someone like Simon Jordan comes out and says, well, your club has spent 200 million, 300 million, whatever. But listen, Chelsea went out there and spent £1 billion, and went out and bought a whole bunch of players. And we've always, I've said to you in the last several summer transfer windows, every time we do business, yes, but I always feel that it's never enough. It's never enough. I mean, if we need maybe 6, 7, 8, proven quality players, we go out there and buy maybe 1 or 2, and the rest of them we fill out with, good potential kids. Now, Bergwall, yes, I think he's a good potential, but, Gray, I think, for example, he's obviously a good potential. But, we need better players. We need to really, we need to get our squad back to the levels of, you mentioned, with Craig and the previous guy, or the first guy who was on, we've lost players over the seasons, over the last couple of seasons. Harry Kane is a huge loss, obviously. Son is gone. Several players have left, and we've never really go out there and replace that level of players. I mean, right now, when you look at our squad, I mean, Van der Ven is probably the only player who might get into a number of, teams in the Premier League. Whereas, when you look at all the other positions, how many of our players would, I remember the times where majority of our players would walk into a lot of the with the exception of maybe Man City, would walk into a lot of the teams, whereas you look at the squad now, and especially after the, after the injuries that we've had, how are we going to, where are we going to field a strong enough team that's capable of beating Villas and, all these other teams? Sorry, I went off on one again.
Archie, this is exactly why these fan shows exist. So people like you can come on and get it all off your chest.
Yeah.
How are you feeling ahead of the next couple of games? Because, of course, we've got the Aston Villa game on Saturday, and then a week Saturday we've got the West Ham United game. I think the Aston Villa game, they're on superb form, aren't they? Apart from the 4-1 defeat away at Arsenal, they've done extremely well recently.
Yeah, I mean, exactly right. I think nobody, I can't imagine any Spurs fan right now feeling confident about this weekend, and which is a shame, I mean, run up to the few days before, if we all feel kind of despondent and that we feel like I mean, you look at this recent several results, and even with when we had Kudus and Bentancur and Bergvall and these players that have just recently got injured as well now, we weren't really putting in good performances. You think, well, what the hell are we going to do now? You never know. Hopefully, maybe obviously he's going to have to bring in several more players, maybe from the youth team, and maybe some of those players might actually come in and be a bit of fresh air, breath of fresh air. Because obviously those players are going to come in wanting to prove themselves. There's going to be maybe potentially one or two players that haven't really had a chance. I mean, it's right now. I'm looking at like Craig said, I'm looking at the fixture list, and I'm thinking, well, we've got obviously Villa, then we've got West Ham, then we've got the Champions League game on the Tuesday, and then we've got Man City. I mean, would you put money on any of us, getting anything from any of those games? We've got Borussia Dortmund coming to us, and then we've got obviously West. I mean, looking at West Ham game, that's a game that, for example, we should be like saying, yes, we'll do them at our ground, and that's it is at our stadium. Do we feel confident? I don't, because I'm looking at that team, and the squad is just not good enough, Chris. And as much as, yes, there are several things that we can criticize Thomas Frank, the gameplay and everything else, but from the start, even before the season started, when the season first started, and I was on one or two shows right at the beginning of the season, I said to you, like, I didn't think that we did enough business to really, to elevate our squad to a good enough level where we could compete. Like they were, like they were saying, the management, new people were coming out with interviews saying that, oh, we want to fight on all fronts. We want to be competitive on all fronts. Well, I'm like, well, how do you expect to do that when you haven't really gone out there and done the business in the transfer market? And so for me, the first and foremost, I mean, yes, look, we can sack Thomas Frank next week, in a few weeks' time, in a month's time, and fair enough, bring somebody interim in the meantime. But unless the ownership, I think, unless the approach of the ownership changes, I think we're just going to go around in circles, mate. I think the same thing is just no matter who we bring in. I mean, if you think since the peak Poch years, the number of managers that we've had come in, and it's been the same thing over and over and over again. And I think until we really have a management or people in charge who are willing to go out there, and yes, in a single transfer window, in a single summer window, they, if we need to go out there and get 6 or 7 top class players, and they have to spend 300-400 million pounds on transfer fees, unless we have people who are willing to do it, I don't think this is ever going to. We're never realistically going to be up there challenging Man City, Arsenal's, for Premiership titles or whatever, or Champions League titles or whatever. I mean, let's be real. So that's what's really frustrating, and I don't understand why we can't do that, because we're a club. Yes, we're one of the best run clubs in the world. We are, thanks to the stadium and everything. As much as I very much was a big critic of Daniel Levy. Look, when he left the club in a really, really good position financially. We've got all of these, fantastic deals where we're in the top 10 richest clubs in the world. So we have the money, and we know that up until now we haven't paid crazy, fees, crazy salaries to players. And I think to really now hit that next level, we have to look at our salary situation. And we know from all the financial experts that come around every sort of, because obviously financial results come around about February, March of every year. And as soon as they come out, you always have, especially in like Talk Sports and stuff, you have financial analysts that look at Tottenham and say, well, look, they do have a lot of headroom where they can pay. If they wanted to, they can pay a lot more to players without, falling foul of, financial fair play. So why don't we do it? If those owners are serious about taking this club forward and having us, fight on all fronts, that's what they need to do. They need to look at that, they need to look at our, the financials of what we offer to players. And, as we spoke the other day, as you said, you've spoken to many ex-players. You said it yourself, it is about money. If you pay the money, you can get the best players come to this club. We have an amazing stadium. We have amazing training facilities. Like, we are a club that has everything except, our ownership just doesn't go out there and do what is required in the transfer window and get the best players in, best potential players in, with proven quality, with proven, Premiership quality. And, we always, in recent, since sort of peak Poch years, we've struggled to put together a team that challenges. Yes, we had a bit of a amazing result last season, winning the Europa League, but that just seemed to be a bit of a, I wouldn't say a fluke, but I think things just, everything, went our way and we did it at the end of the day. But, if we're serious about taking this club forward, if we're serious about changing, this situation that we see season after season after season, that's what's got to happen. It's got to come from the very top. The people who run the club has to go out there, have to put their, hand in their pockets, and they've got to be serious about going out there and getting good, proven quality players. That's going to take this team, that's going to take this club forward. And if they do it, and if we do achieve success, well, guess what? The club is going to become more valuable. The assets that you have are going to become more, valuable. So it only makes sense. And I just don't understand why we do that, because this whole thing about financial fair play and stuff is rubbish. We know that there's we have, with the way, we've been paying wages and things, there's a lot more headroom where we can spend a lot more on salaries, on, fees and whatever else, so that's what really frustrates me. Before I get to the manager or the coach in charge, I look at the ownership. And I think the biggest problem has always been the ownership. And I was hoping that with this new setup, things were going to be different. And so far, 8 days into the transfer window, when we know we needed players already, the fact that the only action has been we sold our top scorer from last season. Why? Even if we were going to sell him, why aren't we holding on to him until the end of the transfer window? Like some clubs make us wait. Why didn't we make Crystal Palace wait until we got some players in to replace Johnson and other injured players,
Ulchi, we've got so many people to talk to, and
Yeah,
I know you can talk. You can talk, and I love that. I love people coming on this fan show and letting it all out. Thank you so much for joining us again.
I love this club. I just want us to I just want this thing to change where we're actually talking about wins and us challenging and whatever else. But anyway,
absolutely.
Anyway,
I tell you, it's far easier talking on these shows when we're winning. Just before you go, I'm gonna read you this from Thomas Frank. He said, "We are working very, very, very hard to improve the squad in this transfer window." He then went on to say, "But it is a very, very, very difficult window." Let's see what happens, Ulchi, and we will talk to you again very soon.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers.
Thanks for having me on. Cheers.
Right, we're now going to go to Singapore to speak to our good friend Dustin. Dustin, how are you?
All right, how are you?
Yeah. Dustin, how are you feeling right now, particularly after the 3-2 defeat away at Bournemouth and all the other things? I know you've been listening to the show since the beginning. What I mentioned to Harry and what I mentioned to Craig and Ulchi there about Romero's comments. I feel like there's so much to cover on this show. Where do you stand with everything right now?
So I think what is important to do, and I see it happen in the comments, I see it happen in the discourse a lot, which is, people are like labeling people, which is like, oh, you're an Aaron supporter, you're a Frank supporter, and then they just use those labels and then they talk past each other. And I think that if you let polarization divide and conquer us, you're letting the people that are actually responsible get off the hook. It's like Brexit, it's like Democrats and Republicans. When the people fight each other, we let the people actually responsible off the hook. Everything that you're blaming on the manager, bear in mind what's actually the fault of the club hierarchy. If you think Ange deserves season 3, the board empowered Levy to fire him. If you think Frank has not had the seasons to get his system to work, the board implemented a dual director football director system and is losing one of them to a relegation candidate in Serie A. If you think Frank's not the guy, Vinay pushed to hire him. If you think the players are crap, the hierarchy has not sold them and bought new ones, and they've sold our last 3 top scorers in a row without replacing them. The other problem is that we have no proper director of football. In other countries, the director of football answers to the press. You know, we know who Bayern's director of football is, and he answers to things that pertain to his position. But England is still very much on the old gaffer system from the Wenger, Ferguson era. So the press always assumes that the manager has all the answers, but increasingly that's not the case. And they're continuing to ask them questions that they don't actually have the answer for, or it's above their pay grade. And what's happening is that we as fans are also starting to blame the manager for things that sometimes are not really in their control, but they can't say it's not in their control because they look like a lame duck and they look like they don't have the ability to get the players they want, things like that. And if they give indications of that, and we've seen it from previous Spurs managers, then the board starts getting huffy with them. We've seen it with Conte and Mourinho, for example, when they say my hands are tied, or this is a club signing, things like that. So the problem of our club not having a proper director of football structure and their innovative dual director thing that lasted barely a quarter is that they've also knee-jerked from one manager to another, resulting in years of wasted time rebuilding every time we change. So what I mean by knee-jerking is Pochettino did well, but didn't win anything. So let's get serial winners like Mourinho and Conte. But then they don't back them with signings. And then the fans go, Mourinho and Conte's football is boring, so let's go with Ange because his football is exciting. Then now we have Ange and, oh, he's really bad defensively, so let's get a defensively solid manager. And they just knee-jerk from one manager to another. But every time you buy players for this manager, you're putting them on like 6-7 year contracts. And then you got all these players that, oh, now the new manager can't use them. So we've got Perisic on the books, we've got Ndombele, we've got Manor Solomon, we've got all these like, you know, Timo Werner. We have all these signings that everyone looks at and go, why the hell did we sign this player? And it's because we signed for the manager now, but we also fired the manager within 18 months, right? And if you have a director of football, the director of football can go, we will hire managers that have this style of play, and we will recruit based on that. And we've seen teams that do that well, and you might think they're mid-table teams or whatever, but Brighton do that well, right? Brighton lose their manager, they lose Caicedo, they lose Bissouma, they lose Balaba, they will replace them with someone else. You trust that their recruitment is in place. So I think the problem is that injury problems is another thing. You can't blame on the manager anymore because it's clear that we have serious problems keeping our players fit. And our squad planning, if that's the case, our squad planning needs to accommodate that with having much higher average quality so that if we have a replacement for injured players, the fall off isn't as large.
Dustin, who would you like to hear from? Vinay Venkatesham, Fabio Paratici, or Johan Lange? Would you like one of them, to do a monthly press conference? Is that what you would like? And if they did do that, would we learn much from it? Would they give standard answers? Would they answer questions that the fans wanted to hear? Because some of these guys, they meet up with the fan advisory board or the club's trust. So what's really the difference? Would it be a beneficial thing to us as a football club if we did take part in that?
I think that we need the answers, and the reason that it's difficult to answer this question is that because England is moving from the gaffer system, and not all clubs have the same system. So I've heard in interviews as well when you talk to chief scouts and stuff like that. For example, our chief scout recently did a podcast interview. He's also admitted that the structure across different clubs is different. So you might have the same role in this club, but your responsibilities are very different if you are in this club versus that club. So it's not universal. But I would say that if you had a general idea of who you should be hearing from, we should hear from who is the nominative director of football, meaning the person that sits on top of the manager and does like signings, does long-term squad planning and stuff like that, does, where are we, loaning out our players to, what's happening with the youth team, what's happening with development, where are we scouting from, what are the long-term plans, and these plans should be set in place, and they should still work even if the manager is changed.
The club kind of do this, but it is via fan forums, and it's funny when Romero wrote that statement, because it is normally when Spurs are doing well at the start of a season. But you as a fan, Dustin, would like to see this on a lot more regular basis, say, monthly or every other month, because at the start of this season, we were getting a lot of communication, and even people like me, a lot of Spurs fans were writing online as well saying, the communication level is excellent. We've seen more communication and we've heard more from the club's hierarchy this season than we have, in previous seasons, which was excellent. But
it's easy when you win a when you win a European title, right? It's very easy to, it's like trading the stock market when it's a bull market. Everyone looks like a genius. When you're winning, it's easy to communicate. There's no downside to communication. It's times like this when you need to communicate. We need to do this is when. So an example, right? In Serie A, this is when the ultras are talking to the players on the pitch and threatening their lives and shit like that. I'm not saying that should happen, but this is when players get called to the carpet. This is when there is accountability. That at the current moment, the club is not held accountable.
Talking about confronting the fans, when you saw those scenes,
what a segue, huh?
Were you surprised? Were you surprised the likes of Van de Ven and Pedro Porro went over and to speak to the fans in the away end?
It's not surprising. So I think that to caveat this, right? Abuse is never right. Okay, like the fact that we've had Brennan Johnson shut off Instagram account and everything. There is feedback you can give to the players, and the feedback can be about their performances, but it should not be about the person. So let's draw that line there. But I understand emotions are high. We play the highest season tickets in the world. I understand the frustration the fans have, especially fans like you that go home and away. You are driving back from Bournemouth in the middle of the night after doing a long podcast and everything, right? It's not a good feeling to go through all that effort, pay all that money, and watch dross like that. So fans have a right to voice what their opinion is, and players at the same time need to do more with their performances. And I think this is where the loss of Son really hits us. Because as much as, there were fans frustrated at Son last season as well, which is I don't need to see your face crying whenever we lose. I just need performances to be better. But you can be sure that he feels the responsibility to the club. And in the dressing room, he is making sure that every player is trying to raise their level for the fans. Because you can sense that as a captain, he feels deeply ashamed when we don't play to our potential and when we disappoint the fans. I'm not sure if there's a captain like that there now. Maybe Madison, but he's injured, right? So I'm not sure there's a captain in that dressing room that's holding their feet to the fire going, hey, when you can post on Instagram when you're winning, but when you're losing and you're fighting with the fans, honestly, do more on the pitch before you start, with asking for, and Thomas Frank asking, we want support, we want the boost and everything. Don't play boring football, honestly.
He seems extremely confident, though, Dustin, doesn't he? That he has got the confidence of the board, and he seems actually quite surprised when asked the question about being given time at the football club, and he came out and said, "No doubt about that."
I mean, he doesn't even notice what cup he's drinking from, right?
But you know what? Every time that he has been booed individually, he actually looks really surprised. He actually looks really surprised the way that the fans have reacted to him solely.
So I think that one of the things that is he has done so much for Brentford, right? That he has so much goodwill in the bank there. And I think you can develop a bit of a messiah complex where it feels like, when and I'm not trying to be denigrate anything about Brentford, but if your expectations are staying in the Premier League and not getting relegated, and once in a while punching above your weight, those expectations, I wouldn't say there's nothing that's easy to meet. Being a top flight manager is difficult, right? But there are different expectations and there are levels. So it is difficult for him to foresee fans not being on board with everything he's doing, because his learned experience over the last 7 years has been, everything is roses. So I think that's one of the things that it's probably the most cognitive dissonance for him, is the fact that, my farts don't smell like perfume, and there are fans calling me out and not happy that I'm not calling them true fans and everything, because there are just so many things that are different in a club of this level, with fans that have been disappointed with the hierarchy and how the club has been run for honestly decades, right? So it's vitriol that has accumulated over a long amount of time. So even Ange had the same problem, like cupping his ear to the fans and like jawing with the fans when things got toxic last season as well. So I would say that there's no way any manager can come into this club and understand the depth of the decades of disappointment that wells up, because you're just frustrated. And I understand when it wells up for the fans and they're like, I can't hold this shit in anymore, and I'm going to let the manager know how I feel about it. And the manager's like, I just got here and I don't understand why you're so angry, because not everyone is a fan of Spurs and understands the whole Dr. Tottenham memes and Spursy memes, and how you can be in a public arena, nothing's going on, people, what do we think of Tottenham shit? And you're like, what the hell did we do, right? So no manager really understands, and I think Ange actually came the closest to understanding how the fans felt, because he was the only one that actually defended us to the press, saying no one had an issue with Europa League winners getting a Champions League spot until we are almost going to do it. So I think that is the connection with the fans that's very, very difficult to get, because you have to condense decades of hurt into a very short amount of time while actually doing a job.
Dustin, always such a great guest. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will talk to you again very soon.
Cheers.
Cheers. Right, we're now going to go all the way to New York, and we're going to talk to Terry. And I'm going to blame you, Terry. You're one of the people that emailed me earlier saying, let's do a fan show.
No, thank you. Thank you for doing this. It's I suspect that you may have quite a long show today. It's it just doesn't there's so many points in the season where you feel like we've hit the low point. It was either Chelsea, it was either Arsenal, it was Fulham, and then we continually find a new floor, a new basement here, and it's I don't know if it's ever felt worse than like seeing those images of Van de Ven in Porto yesterday. I don't know if you heard what that gentleman was saying to them, Chris, or if you know what he was saying to them, but it's
No.
It doesn't feel like it could get much lower than that. The only thing lower than this is relegation, which is it's crazy that it's not that far off, but also a European place isn't that far off either. So it's like such a strange place to be in right now. So it's it's.
Yeah, I was going to say, Terry, the club need to take the opportunity, and I've been saying that for the past week or so, that there'll be a whole host of clubs mid-table at the moment thinking, well, we're only a couple of points away from a top European spot, but we're also a couple of points away from a low spot in the league table, just above the relegation zone. And thank God for the likes of Wolves, West Ham and Burnley being so bad, because, some of these other clubs won't fall into that relegation zone because of that gap, because they're so bad. So the January transfer window is extremely important for Thomas Frank and Spurs. How confident are you that we're going to get January signings in? And when I say signings, I mean impact players that are going to walk straight into this team and squad and make a real impact.
I'm not, at this point. I'm not. I'm starting to question kind of the level of dysfunction at this club at every single level, from on the field to the relationship with the coach, the relationship with the fans, the Langa and Paratici, and that whole group. It's just, it honestly feels like after yesterday that we're closer to losing top tier players like Mickey Van de Ven and Christian Romero in the summer than it is for us to bring in some kind of top tier player. And I think part of the reason why yesterday it hurt so much is that it's yet another player that we really wanted. We really tried to get, and we were rejected by that player. And for that player to come back and then hurt us so personally, just the way that Eze did, just the way, like the way that you can't blame the guy either. I mean, if you were Semenyo and you had a chance to come to go to Man City or Tottenham, where would you go? Like you'd probably go to City as well. So it's it just makes it sting so much harder. It makes the knife turn that much more. It's, Dustin made a really good point about the different coaches that we've had and the different players that we brought in for each of the different coaches. So I think I understand the arguments both for Brendan Johnson, for keeping him and selling him. I personally really wanted to keep him. My issue isn't that we sold him. My issue is that we're sold a player because he doesn't fit into a coach's plans, when that coach himself may not be here in a few months. He may not be here in a month or so. So it's such short-sighted planning. There's no strategy. There's no long-term planning in this as well. And then kind of the nature.
This is it though, Terry. What makes you believe that Thomas Frank won't be here? You say about no long-term planning. Perhaps one of the long-term plans is to keep Thomas Frank, regardless of where we are in the league, regardless of what we do in the FA Cup, Champions League, because the guy has actually come out and said a number of times. You remember we finished 17th last year. Do you feel any part of you that feels that he's kind of been given a free ticket this season to make Tottenham in that transitional period? It doesn't matter where we finish. Is there any part of you that feels that? Because that's exactly where I'm at. When he comes out, and he's done this a few times now recently, that he actually looks surprised when people go, do you think you're being backed by the board? Or what about the style of play? And, all these types of things. And he goes on about offensive players. I actually think that he feels very confident in his position, and he must be told, for him to come out and say, and he used that word aligned a lot, he must have been told, your job is fine. And a lot of me is thinking, I don't understand why the fans are thinking that he is going to get the sack. Like we've seen so many comments today online, particularly after the Bournemouth game, going, well, if he loses that game against Aston Villa in the FA Cup on Saturday, then he's going to get fired. And I've seen a lot of other people making stuff up online. And like Dustin said, that there is a real mixture, and this is why I like doing these shows as well, so people can actually talk it out rather than sitting behind a keyboard saying, they don't even say I don't agree with you. They just get personal and then say you're this, you're that, you're this, and don't actually have a proper discussion about how people feel and why they feel that way. But yeah, do you feel like he's got kind of a free ticket this season?
I think at least until the summer he does. And as much as the more and more we see this team play in the way that he acts, the less and less that I agree with his decisions. But I do feel like it's the right decision to stick with him, to give him at least one transfer window and to see kind of where we're going to go from here. Because like Dustin said, it's just going to be knee-jerk reaction after knee-jerk reaction, bringing in players for one particular manager that doesn't fit into the system of another, and just these mismatch and just this vicious circle that we seem to go through year and year and year. And it's talking about some of the dysfunction on the field, like what I'm still trying to just wrap my head around is just just like the players just passing these balls into empty spaces, just not knowing where their teammates are. Like someone going on a fast break and then kind of desperately looking around for any kind of support, and none of the teammates coming to support. Like us having these counterattacks where we rush to the opponent's box or the final third, and then Jed Spence will just stop and turn, and then we start passing it backwards again. It just makes me wonder, like, what do they practice all week? What do they work on? Do they work on patterns of play during like it's
a lot of people have said exactly this. Yeah,
really,
yeah, and I agree.
Yeah.
Let me read this comment out from X. Silky Slick writes here: why should Thomas Frank get the sack? Look at the players that we've got. Our attackers and midfield are a shambles. Is it the fact, Terry, that we do have a very good manager? We know that he is a very, very capable manager and got vast Premier League experience with Brentford. Is it the case that the players, most of these players, the majority of the players need replacing? And also, how do you think that some of these squad members feel? Because Thomas Frank has come out and said, we're working very, very hard to improve the squad. So some of those players will think, well, what, am I not good enough then? Who's not good enough? The players will be thinking that. And plus, when Romero puts the dig out on social media, he's obviously aiming that at some of his teammates as well, saying that these players aren't good enough. So it all goes hand in hand. And also, a couple of players commented, Pedro Porro and Richarlison, and a handful of players actually liked that post as well. So you can tell that they've obviously had a conversation to say, look, we're not doing this X, Y, and Z in transfer windows. We've got these players that aren't good enough. So if we feel it as fans, if we were playing football together and one of us was absolutely rubbish, we'd be thinking, you're not good enough for this team.
Yep. Yeah, and that's where the dysfunction comes in. It's at every single level. It's at the coaching level. It's at the player level. It's at the academy level. It's at the recruiting level. It's at the management level. It's the American commentator in the game yesterday said something to the effect of like these two teams have been kind of in a similar place since early in the season, but with Bournemouth, you feel like even during tough times that they're together, that there's a sense of togetherness about them. And you don't feel that way about this Tottenham team. And you can see it, you can feel it when you see the interaction with the players. Personally, I loved the Romero post. I can only imagine how much he's been holding in for that to burst out after yesterday. He's been holding a lot back. I think you made the comparison to Conte. I mean, what Conte said after that Southampton game is just becoming all the more prescient at this point. I miss Conte. I do. If I could bring in, I know everyone wants Pochettino to come back in. If I could have anyone come back in, if it was a perfect world and I owned this team, I would bring Conte back in. Just listen to everything that he says and go with what he wants to do for the next 3 to 5 years. I mean, look what he's done with Napoli. Like just to come back and to immediately win this Scudetto. With a big mishmash of players as well, losing Kvaratskhelia right off the bat and still making adjustments for that. It's just at least the players knew where they were supposed to be, and at least the players knew where their teammates were going to be. Like if I think back to that second goal that Bournemouth scored, it was that long cross into Senesi, who's a defender, and then Senesi immediately crosses the ball right into the box, and then Krupi gets onto it because he knows that Krupi is going to be there, and Krupi knows that he has to be there. We have so many situations like that where we'll cross the ball right into the box, and there's no player near the ball. And then everyone's kind of looking at each other, and they kind of do this, and then it's just like that's on the players, that's on the coach, that's on the coaching, that's on this lack of practice. Again, I would die to know what they actually work on during practice. It doesn't seem like they actually practice here.
Terry, lastly, Frank said today, it's a tough spell at the moment, but we will get through this. Do you think we are going to get through this? Do you think that the Spurs fan base at some time in the near future will laugh about this period of so many people doubting Thomas Frank? Can he be a success at Tottenham?
Yeah, I certainly hope so. I mean, it can't feel any lower than it does now. I mean, but we've said that several times this season, which is what's scary. I feel like as Tottenham fans, and I think fans of most football clubs, I think we feed off of hope, right? That's what fuels us, and that's what keeps us going. And right now, the feeling is just much more of despair than it is of hope. I mean, to come out of yesterday with just the news about Kudus, Bergvall, and Bentancur,
Yeah.
to lose Kudus 11 minutes pretty much after we sold Brendan Johnson. Only Spurs, right? Only Spurs. Like, it's like, I think all the stuff about this Arsenal coffee cup is ridiculous. But just the fact that something like that happens and becomes a story, it's only Spurs. It's only Spurs. It's like the mass coincidences that happen. Like, for Semenyo to have his Cinderella story moment, of course that's going to happen against us. For Eze to have his hat trick, of course that's going to happen against us.
Do you know what? Do you know what though, Terry? I've done 2 media interviews today, and both of them have asked me about that coffee cup incident. And I actually think, and I might be wrong here, you tell me in the comments, watching on YouTube, Facebook, and X. I actually think it's more the media, and I actually think it's more opposition fans who found it funny rather than Tottenham fans actually being annoyed with it. I don't know anyone who's actually been really annoyed with it. That's why I asked Craig that question earlier. Did it annoy you?
No, not at all. It clearly it was a mistake. The situation that led up to that, the fact that Arsenal played there previously, someone left the cup, and that it just all there's this perfect storm of things that had to happen. It's such a non-issue. But I don't like that. I think it was Tom Barkley that asked the question. It's it's in times like that, I do feel for Thomas Frank. I do. I disagree with so much of what he's doing or what he's not doing. But one thing he did say in his last press conference is that since the Brentford game, we have been playing better. We have looked more positive. And I think that's another reason why yesterday's game was just hurt that much more, because we started off so well. Finally, looks like we have some hope on the left wing with Matisse Tell, right? So then to lose that and to go down so quickly after going up, then to have that beautiful hope from Paulinho, who's still my favorite player on this current squad, and then to lose it like that is it's such a roller coaster of emotions. Like, I can completely see the anger directed at the team and at Frank, but I don't put that on Frank yesterday. I don't think he deserves to be singled out for boos like he was yesterday, or like he has been over the past few weeks. We are playing a little better. Again, that's a pretty low bar to compare ourselves to, because the Brentford, that was just about the lowest for me, like watching that or trying to watch that was. But I don't know about you, but Chris, but you see his face, and he looks beat down. He looks so tired of the media, of these questions. There's too many press conferences. There really are, and they just some of the reporters just they'll try to be polite, but they'll really kind of dig and just repeat the same questions again. It's exhausting to watch. I can only imagine how exhausting it is for him to answer these questions again and again.
Traditionally, when we play at the weekend, it's normally a Friday press conference, or certainly the day before, if it's a weekday. And apparently, from what I'm told, Thomas Frank has actually requested that he does the press conferences 2 days before. So I said exactly this, Terry, last night, that after that Bournemouth game, of course, he's done the press conference, and then today he's done another press conference rather than he's done it tomorrow. But there is an embargoed section being released this evening. There's also another short embargoed section being released tomorrow evening. But yeah, you're absolutely right. When he walked down the tunnel after the 1-1 draw against Sunderland at home, when there were some guys behind me booing, he just looked, visibly upset that the fact that those boos were coming his way. And of course, then he realised at Brentford, because he very boldly was walking over to the away end, and then suddenly you could just see in his eyes that he'd been thinking, oh, those boos are getting louder because I am walking towards the away end. And then, of course, it happened again yesterday. So he didn't walk nowhere near as far as he normally does to the away end because he knew exactly what was happening. And it's very sad to see. And as I've said a number of times, although I want to see a lot more from Thomas Frank, although I want us to be climbing up that league table and, him getting the best out of players and, us seeing positive signs, I do feel for him as a person because that can't be nice at all.
Yeah.
And it just proves again what a huge job this is and, how people react. And everyone is very, very emotional after games. And even me as a podcaster, I get a lot of flack from people, when we don't win games. So, me as a podcaster, I feel it sometimes. Imagine actually managing the club like Thomas Frank. The pressure on that guy is just immense. He looks drained and tired, Terry.
That's the reason why I do agree that it seems like the board's going to back him at least through the year. But I can't remember a time where it's felt this toxic kind of at every single level, between the players, between the fans.
Yeah.
We don't hear from management, but you can't imagine that relationship is great. That's part of the frustration as well. Like we're hearing nothing from Langa, we're hearing nothing from Paratici. We haven't heard from Vinay in a while. You can see the angst in Frank's face. Now we are hearing the angst from the players themselves. Something's going to break. Something's going to break here.
What could they say? What could Vinay come out and say, or Johan, or Fabio? What could they actually say at this point? What do you want to hear them address?
I want to hear that we have X budget for 3 players, 4 players, and we're going to do everything we can to it. Another thing I feel bad for Frank Bot is just hearing we're working really, really, really hard on this. Right?
Yeah.
The team is working very, very hard. The team is working night and day. I'm working night and day.
It's three verys. We're working very, very, very hard, and it is very, very, very difficult.
Yeah, and it's in the work that I do, it's the outcome is more important than the output. You don't just put things out there. Like there needs to be a result, something that you move towards. So I feel like it's just all this talk about the things that we're doing, but not seeing that outcome. I mean, and not kind of hearing what goes on with that. I know that's the way that Longa works, but for this situation that we're in now, like especially like with Semenyo, he signs today. Then you hear that these other Man City players may be available. That's the way to do it. Like even with Crystal Palace, like this is more of a personal thing with Crystal Palace, but they strung us along for 2 weeks on Eze and then sold them to our arch rival. Right? When they wanted one of our players, Brendan Johnson was the first here we go of the January transfer window. It was almost like as soon as it's always like we're the butt of the joke. We're on the wrong end of the joke, whether we're the selling club or the buying club. Like, why is that? That has to be our management. That has to be the lack of planning, the lack of strategy, the lack of vision here. And it's that's where the despair comes in. I don't know if this management structure is the right one for our club. I think Gary put out a video earlier where he's saying he feels like we need a complete overhaul. I don't know how realistic that is, but I can see why he's saying that. It seems just something about the culture of this place always brings us back to situations like this, where we're in this feeling of despair, where we have to change the manager or we need a completely new squad. We've brought in so many players over the past, just even the past 4 years or so. So many players that we were so excited about. And it seemed, how can we seem to be so thin everywhere still? I don't understand that.
Well, Terry, I think it's very fair to say we are very, very, very frustrated as a fan base right now. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Terry, thanks so much for joining me. And
thank you for doing this, Chris.
We will talk We'll talk soon. Cheers.
Thanks. Cheers. Bye.
Right. We're now going to go to Alex in the UK. Alex, how are you?
Hi, Chris. Yeah, it's raining outside and it's pouring like it is at Tottenham at the moment. Really, to be honest with you, to be honest with you, I'm kind of just like don't really care anymore. If I'm really honest with you, I've not felt like that. I felt like that. I remember the first time we met, Chris. Yeah, right before this whole box office thing and all that stuff. Yeah, right. We met each other, and because I had a lot of respect for you because you did the tours around the stadium and stuff. Yeah, and I was kind of starstruck when I saw you. Right, don't get used to it. Yeah, right, and you were kind of surprised because I think you were expecting just a nice guy, just being happy and stuff. And I think you were quite surprised the way I was very, very honest that I didn't like what was going on. And I said, since Pochettino, I didn't like it. And ever since then, I think you've been waiting for me to say you like what's going on at the moment. You like what's going on. And I can honestly say that
Alex, I'm not going to influence anyone what they're going to say.
I know. But
this is what these fan shows are about. You know, you don't need to agree with what I say.
Let me finish my point. I'm not having a go, but if you hear the end of what
it's fine if you do want to have a go. That's fine.
No, I'm not having a go. I'm not having a go. But let me finish the point, yeah, right. And the reason why I feel the way I feel is because since Pochettino, I've not seen anything aligned with the whole club at the moment. Now, you look at the club right now as it stands at the moment. If we look at the last 14 games, we've won 4. I'll tell you what those games are. Copenhagen, Brentford at home, Slavia Prague, and Crystal Palace away. Now, this is not too dissimilar to last season, right? Now, everyone was getting so excited. And I'll get onto the Bournemouth game in a bit, but I just want to get this out off my chest, this part, right? Because it goes on to why I don't think Thomas Frank can get sacked right now, right? And he needs to stay by the end of the season. Because I don't think, if anybody thinks that and by the way, I don't like Thomas Frank. I don't want Thomas Frank, right? Okay? But if you think, if we sack Thomas Frank, that Vinay Visitesham and Johan Lang, and forget Paratici, because at the moment it's a done deal to Fiorentina at the moment. I don't even like him. Are able to find another manager with the small pool of managers that we've got right now. I think you're absolutely doolally if you think that's going to happen, right? You just need to look at Manchester United at the moment, who've sacked their manager, and who they got. They're getting interim until the end of the season, which is exactly what we be doing to say we need to bide our time, give us some breathing space. And Chris, we know what happens. The problem is the board, the upstairs, because if you have somebody who's a leader, and this is what Simon Jordan was talking about, and I'm repeating myself again, if you have a leader up there says, this is what we're going to do, identity saying, this is what we want, this is what we're going to do, and we're going forward like this, right? You either had the director of football saying, this is what we're doing, okay, these are the sort of managers we want, like Brighton are doing at the moment, right? Okay, like Rangnick, right? You get a Rangnick in, he says, this is the way we want to play. This is the way we want to play. These are the managers we want to do, bring in, right? And whether you want coaches or whatever, that's it, right? What I'm trying to say is that you need a structure. You need an identity. You need a purpose of what is the plan? Because all we've had over the last couple of months or so, since Daniel Levy's come in, Daniel Levy's left, I mean, right, and the ENIC 2.0's come in, all we've heard is saying we want to go all through all fronts. What does that mean, Chris? What does that mean? Because at the moment, I don't know what it means at the moment, right? And to be honest with you, now you're saying you want to play in all fronts. They don't believe in the manager at the moment because why is it no one? Why are we signing a bloody 19-year-old from Brazil? Why are we signing a bloody Brazilian 19-year-old when the squad is decimated? Right, and I'm not going to make excuses for Thomas Frank because the same thing happened with Ange. Yeah, so forget Ange, right? Ange is done. Yeah, but let's look at it now because at the moment, right, we're lucky that we're not near the relegation zone at the moment. Right, I actually wish we were. You know why? Because then there'll be action taken straight away. Right, there'll be action taken saying, "Yeah, we need to sort something out because we can't go down." But at the moment, because we're 10 points away from West Ham, and because our teams are so bad, it ain't looking as bad. We're just a mid-table team at the moment. But you don't get it twisted, yeah? We're heading that way. We are heading that way if we don't sort out an identity and sort out a structure, and that's it. Because you shouldn't have people like Vinay and Nohan Lang and Prataji, who says he's going to leave, have so much melee upstairs, and that's why you're seeing now players like Romero doing posts what he's done. You're seeing players going out after the game, going at the fans. That's why you're seeing it. Because I'll tell you, an example, what's a club that's actually well run that had turbulence in the summer, Aston Villa. Aston Villa in the summer has so much turbulence in the summer. We all know, right? Because they didn't get Champions League, they had to pay off a lot of things, right? They got fines, yeah. They had to sell players. Look at Aston Villa right now. Do you hear anything from Aston Villa? Do you hear anybody, any player come out and say, "Oh, you know what? I don't like it here." Do you see anyone? You don't see anything. And look where Aston Villa at the moment, third in the league. Right? I'm not shouting at you. Maybe I'm just a bit. Okay, admittedly, I've got a bit of a cold. I didn't want to go on about that because I don't want people feeling sorry for myself. But you get what I'm saying. But you get what I'm trying to say. It's like there's no direction, no identity, and that's been like that since Poch, right? Harry Redknapp, Martin Jol, and Pochettino were successful managers because the director of football was in place, and there was a synergy between everybody in the club, and that is not coincidence. And we've not learnt.
Genuine
we've not
question,
learnt at all.
Alex. Genuine question for you: have you ever got over Tottenham Hotspur sacking Pochettino?
Well, it's not about that though, Chris. It's not about that though, Chris.
I asked that because you mention him all of the time, and
well, I think it's just a recollection of what happened. When we were actually good, because I've mentioned just Harry Redknapp and it's not about Pochettino
but there's nothing wrong saying that you haven't got over it. I just wondered, yes or no.
I've not been happy since. No, I've not been happy since. No,
right.
Because that's the point. It's not just about Pochettino though, Chris. And again, I'm not having a go at you. Yeah, it's just the fact that there's a reason why I've not been happy. You know what I mean? And I can't force myself because I can see there's no belief. And the fact that people are now saying, and again, I'm not saying you can sack the manager. That's absolutely fine. I don't care anymore, right? But if you think that we're going to get another manager in, I've heard people getting Javi. Javi's not coming to this in the middle of the season. He's not coming to this. You can throw any much money on this. You're not getting this. Even if he comes in, he's got to still work with the same players that I don't rate most of them. You know what I mean? I like. By the way, Chris, I should have said Danzo. I like Danzo. I actually like Danzo as a player, right? For some reason, I just like him. I like the hard working. I like his hard work ethic, right? But I know he's got some. I know he's got some things that he needs to work on though. Still, you know what I mean? And that's why he's not in the team. I like Van der Ven, but I think Van der Ven, if a proper club, Chris, yeah. Look at Bournemouth. Bournemouth knew that they had to sell Semenyo, right? And they put a release clause on it. So now they've planned it. Now they're saying now they're going to get a replacement. I know Van der Ven is going to be leaving in the next 2 years, well, maybe even the summer, because of what he's done in the Champions League. Are Tottenham going to be prepared to replace him? they should be looking at replacements right now, right? Because if Real Madrid and Barcelona start calling, he's gone, right? And then we're in trouble. Romero, you've seen the trouble that's coming up with him as well now. You know what I mean? I'm looking at Poro. I'll be selling him right now. I've liked Spence as well. Now we've got injuries as well. And the thing is, I think people are forgetting as well, the front line is not as great. I actually like Richarlison yesterday. It was better than bloody Mawani yesterday, and I don't like Richarlison. But at least Richarlison was making some effort. You know what I mean? You know,
Alex,
I think people are forgetting we lost goals in, and again, this is not my point. This is some people I've streamed with before, so it's not really my point. But it's Harry Kane, Son. We've got no Kulusevski, we've got no Maddison, right? And we've not replaced those players that gave us that GA, right? I haven't got the numbers, unfortunately. I should have done my research and done that. But this is the thing. We are an absolute mess, and people think that just sacking the manager is going to do it's going to get worse. And to be honest with you, do not tell me to back a manager, right? If we're just going to keep on sacking managers, right? You know what I mean? We need stability, and that's what we need, either in the director position or the manager's position. Because at the moment, it's going down. It's going like this, and that's all I've got to say. Sorry, Chris.
Alex, lastly, talk to me about the performance at Bournemouth, the 3-2 defeat. Were you happy overall with the performance?
It was okay, Chris. The first, like I'll say, good description would be the first 15 minutes was good, and then the last 15, because I think Bournemouth kind of tailed off a little bit. But I think in between, I think we scored the goal. Tell was a good goal, but he faded. I've got to be honest. And towards the end of the game, I think we were unlucky. We were unlucky in certain times. I think because Richarlison hit the post. I think it was. And then Van der Ven, it was a really good save, I think, in the end. So we should have really. I think it was if we really are honest, I think a fair result would have been a draw. If I'm really honest with you, because I think we did try and pass the ball. I think it's a relatively short, relatively all right improvement. I thought. I think people having a go at Bentancur. I don't like Bentancur. I'm not his biggest fan. I think he's a pragmatic player, but I think he's okay actually. I thought it was okay. It was a very good goal from Paulinho, which I'm a bit shocked why we still we don't want to sign him though, because I think Paulinho's got that heart and that sort of you can see he's got that heart. You know what I mean? But I wonder that is because he's we wanted somebody a little bit more younger. I don't know. You know what I mean? But yeah, I just think we're just some very bad errors, I think, in the defence, I think, especially for the first goal, and relatively the second goal, even though it was good creatively. And yeah, I do think that when we got on, when Bentancur came off and Archie Gray came on, I did get very worried about it, because we did look a little bit more on the front foot, and we did have the momentum. But unfortunately, yeah, it was kind of written in the stars that Semenyo was going to score. So it is, yeah, it is what I'm saying at the moment. Like I said, it is what it is. It is what it is at the moment. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm kind of this is the most serious I've been on these shows with you, to be honest with you, because I've kind of just like tried to joke about it a little bit, really, because really it's not really any laughter being a Tottenham fan anymore. But I think now the reality is there's a lot to do, and there's a lot that needs to be addressed at the moment, and it's not just the manager. And like I said, I need to remind people I'm not here to defend the manager. I'm just being a clear picture at the moment, because I think it will get worse if we do get rid of the manager. I don't think you've got any. I don't think they've got a clue. I've heard something saying they want to sack Thomas Frank, but they haven't got a clue what to do, and that is even more worrying in itself, Chris. That's even worrying in itself. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that's my thoughts at the moment, really. So I've kind of dragged myself. I've kind of waffled on a little bit. which I don't
No.
normally do. But you know,
No, that's
moving on.
fine. Just a very quick last one. Score prediction for the Aston Villa game in the FA Cup.
This is going to be a popular opinion. I don't really care about that FA Cup match now. I think, if I'm saying it right now, I would like to think we'll give it a go, but I think it's going to be
Because we've actually got
nick it.
we've got a week until the next game, haven't we? The West Ham. So we've got a week. So do you think that Thomas Frank will go strong? Should go strong in this game?
I think he's got no choice, hasn't he?
I say strong with the amount of injuries that we've got. You know?
That's the point. That's the problem, Chris. I think we've got a really massive problem there in terms of injuries, haven't we? So, I think it will be a mix and match. I think because I think the West Ham game. Well, actually, you know what? I think he might have to go strong because I think if he does go out the FA Cup, you know what the fans are going to be like at the moment. I think they're going to boo him, and it then becomes a little bit more untenable his position at the moment. So I think he's got no choice, Chris. I think he's got absolutely no choice but to go strong, unfortunately. So yeah, it is what it is. I think at the moment the board need to I don't, like I said, I don't think they're all for Frank at the moment. I don't think they are, and that's why we're seeing at the moment dithering in the transfer window at the moment. Yeah, it is what it is at the moment. So that's what worries me. And luckily, like I said, we're nowhere near that relegation zone at the moment. Because if it was, I actually think it would have been actually good for us because then at least I think then action would have been taken. I think action would have been taken, either transfers or something else. I think there would have been transfers done straight away because you cannot afford a big club. Well, I wouldn't say a big club, but a club like Tottenham with the stadium that we've got. That let's be honest here, the fans are getting disinterested now. You know what I mean? And that's it. Yeah, but that's the last thing I'll say because I've kind of waffled on a little bit. Sorry about Chris. Anyway, but
no, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
Go and get a lem sip, Alex, and we'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, take care. Yeah.
Cheers.
Right, bye-bye.
Right, we're now going to go to Michael, and I'm so sorry, guys. You are waiting very patiently, and I'm going to try and get through as many people as I possibly can in a short time. Michael, how are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing, Chris?
Yeah, good, thank you. Thanks so much for joining us. How are you feeling right now?
Oh, how are any of us feeling? All I can say is we could have predicted that. We sell Johnson, and then 15 minutes into the game, Kudus gets injured. That's just like written in the stars for Spurs fans. Honestly, I'm kind of at this place where I'm like, what do we expect? We have such high expectations of the ownership, of the board, the manager, the players. And I know that this is like not something that any one person can do, but should there be an expectation of the fans? I think Frank was trying to kind of talk to that a couple of press conferences ago. And you know, like I'm looking at this from afar, from like footage. Like I love the videos that you're posting, but seeing the booing, especially on an away day where like people traveled and they're still booing. Like I didn't think we played that poorly yesterday. There's certainly stretches of the game where it feels like we cannot string a pass together, and we're playing like what we would call like Pee Wee soccer league. But we showed heart. We had the mindset. We came back. Like I thought that and like, of course, Semenyo is going to do everything he can to put the ball in the back of the net at the end of the game. So like tough loss, but way better than we've played in the last couple of games. So I'm not trying to make excuses for anyone, but I'm just like, I'm a little torn. I'm like, I really don't understand why the fan base was so eager to get rid of Brennan Johnson. He is like, I'm not saying he was the greatest player ever, but he is what we should expect. He is like, he was underperforming. He was getting a ton of criticism. He deleted his socials. He buckled down, and then he came back and he was our top scorer that year. Like, what more can we ask of a player? And then he fell. I mean, look, part of that is management not being able to play him or not wanting to play him. So like there's something to that, but the fans were so not behind him. And it's tough. Like I'm trying to plan like the next big birthday. I want to fly to England. And I want to go to some games. I feel terrible if I'm like spending thousands and thousands of dollars and time away from my family to then watch a game and then have the fan base boo at the end where players are giving it their all. Like I can't imagine you doing that, but it's, I mean, you were there, you hear it. Like, is it just so like, is there just like such vitriol in the stands?
I feel like it's very sad times, Michael, right now, because like you said, when you travel home and away to some of these games, and I think that's probably why I try to remain positive in certain aspects of the manager, the manager, the players, what the board can deliver and what they should deliver. But I feel like a lot of people are at the breaking point where we've had decisions been made which have been really poor ones. The recruitment's been poor, and when you think about it as a collective overall, during a long period of time, some of us actually buy into, it's going to change, and then we get our hopes up again and again and again, and then it doesn't work out. And like I said earlier on the stream, the amount of managers that we've gone through that hasn't worked, and you went from Pochettino, who didn't sadly win us a trophy, and then we went down the route of, right, we're going to get a win now manager, someone who is going to deliver us a trophy, Jose Mourinho. And I remember feeling so sad about Poch leaving, and then automatically, although there was sadness, I thought, wow, Jose Mourinho's come through the door. He is going to win us a trophy. And how many times, like during the X amount of years that I've done YouTube, that all I banged on about, some people always remind me about it, going, you mention trophies all the time about that desire to win a trophy. How many years haven't we won a trophy? And then you get Jose in, and then you get Conte, and you think, okay, Jose didn't do it, but Conte will. And then we'll have the manager being backed and blah, blah, blah. And we tell ourselves this as Spurs fans all the time, that this manager will be backed and we will do X, Y, and Z, and we will be successful. And, that's why I suppose that I mention Ange a lot, because deep respect to Ange Postecoglou. And I know, and I've said this many times, I don't get the hate and the abuse that guy gets when he delivered a European trophy for us, because he went for it. He completely got, and he saw it from the outside in of like, that club hasn't won a trophy in all this time. They need to dare and they need to do. And that's exactly what he did for us.
And look what we did to him. Like,
yeah.
It doesn't make any sense at the moment. Yeah. And look, like, I think it's clear that we're trying to go through a culture shift. I think that's part of why we've gone through the manager merry-go-round for the last couple of seasons. I think it's why Levy's not there anymore. I don't know if that's actually changed a whole lot. It still feels like we're operating in the same way and trying to nickel and dime and sneak deals in and only invest in young players. And, I'm not saying we're at the same wavelength, but like, it's starting to almost feel like, are we trying to pull the Chelsea model where we're just buying and selling players and not necessarily looking for players that are going to elevate our team and make us better like this season? And like, I feel like there should be way more good-heartedness after we finally won a trophy last year. And it seemed like that just went away so fast. And I think we need to have like an honest conversation of like, are we a top 4 club trying to win titles, or are we a very solid club that has a rich history, has some really good cup runs, and we're trying to build something so that we can challenge for top spots? No, don't get me wrong. I want to win the Premiership. Like, nothing would make me happier than seeing us lift that trophy and have a season where like it all falls into place. But so does every team. And I look at like teams like the Aston Villas and Newcastles of the world, where they're not there yet, but it feels like there's just excitement around their clubs, even though it's a little bit slow building and there's setbacks, and they have these, like Newcastle has this giant investment, but they still can't spend all of it. But it feels like the fans are just so behind their club. And from the outside looking in, it does not feel that way I was about to say White Hart Lane, but like, it does not feel that way at our stadium. Home, away, it feels like we're just looking for something that we can bicker at and complain about and boo at. And look, the football hasn't been there this year, but I still think that as fans, I'm sitting there cheering my ass off, even though I'm like alone in my couch, scaring the hell out of my dog. So like, it's a weird feeling. Sometimes it feels like we're more invested in like what the outside image of our club is rather than the club itself. So like our striker situation is a perfect example. All of the like feedback that I was hearing for like weeks and weeks is like, Moani's got the goods. He looks the part, and he's coming from good pedigree. He's coming from PSG, and you know he's who should be leading the line. He's got 2 goals for us, and at times he has looked really good, but he's not delivering. And Richie, who has one of the most punchable faces I've ever seen on a player, is showing up this year. He's hardy. He's not getting injured. He's putting the ball in the back of the net, and he's playing with passion, which he has always done. And yet it feels like, well, we'll probably get rid of him because, you know, he's not good enough for us. He's playing the way we want to. He's doing the things that we're asking him to do. So I'm just like, it's such a frustrating and weird time. Like I'm like you, like I want to stay positive. I want to play with hope. I want to see what the vision is. And it's hard to see it from both ends, from top all the way down.
Yeah. Michael, thanks so much for joining us as always. Always a great guest, always great points, and we'll speak to you soon.
Sounds good.
Cheers. Right. I'm now going to go to John. Actually, John, I'll come to you next. I'm going to go to Phil because Phil is in the early hours of the morning in Australia. Ian writes here, people are calling for a new manager, but I'm not sure what changing the manager does in the short term. And I must say on this point, if Spurs keep, employing new managers, surely we have to back them and go down a different route, like we, have made so many mistakes in past transfer windows in terms of recruitment. Phil, do you agree with that?
Oh, sorry. I don't know anymore. I don't know about anything.
Because can we keep going through different managers? Would it be a right decision? You know, a lot of people are saying, get rid of Thomas Frank now. Would it be the right thing to do? Because what would happen next? Because the manager, regardless of who the manager is, they need to be back. They need top quality players.
Well, I told you a couple of times when I've been on here that you can't keep changing the manager all the time. But I was talking to my brother in the UK, and he brought out a few points that a manager he's supposed to see all eventualities. And if we have, suddenly everyone's surprised that Kudus is injured. I mean, for Christ's sake, have they seen our record of injuries? I mean, Solanke was supposed to be out for 2 weeks with a knock, and he's been out for 6 months. Maddison's been out for a year, and they knew about that pre-season. Kulusevski as well. And what do? The first day of the transfer market, he goes and gets rid of Brennan Johnson. And, and I've said the same thing about wanting communication from the club and everything else. Excuse my language. It's bullshit. They think we're all idiots. And the fact of the matter is they can say what they like. Frank's been saying, they've all been working really hard. Well, what have they been doing? Digging up the road? Because they sure haven't been looking at getting potential players in. We're 9 days into January, and they've done a sweet FA. Nothing's been done. If we know that we're going to get injuries, why do you sell Johnson? I'm not particularly happy about Johnson. He didn't fill his potential or anything else, but you don't get rid of him. And now we've got Bergvall out. We've got, who else we got out? Bentancur.
Yep.
It's a nonsense. It's not like it's a surprise. We had all these injuries last year. We've always had injuries. Darren Anderton was known as Sick Note because he was constantly in the bloody room being checked by the docs. So it's not like it's unusual. And a manager's job is to check all eventualities. I'm just getting to a point where I'm just getting apathy. If we had more emotion and more work from the players on the pitch rather than having a go at a fella on the sidelines who spent his working week to go to a bloody game in Bournemouth, and it's not round the corner. Well, not for me anyway. I mean, I don't know how far it takes a few hours to get there from North London. They should be man enough, and whether it's Porro or any of the other players, to hold their hands up and say, no, we haven't performed well, and take it on the chin. I expect someone earning 100 grand a week to actually hold their hands up and be a man enough to say, we're not good enough. And then not have a go at someone who's been paying their bloody wages. And I don't know what they do on the training field. I'm sorry if I'm repeating what some people said before, but I missed the first half hour of the show. But you can't. It used to be where a player wouldn't even have to look because they'd done all this practice on moves and everything else, that they pass the ball where they expect their colleague to be. And at the moment, the only accurate passing that seems to happen, and even then it's not that accurate, is at the behind the halfway line, going towards Vicario's goal. It's crap. It's crap. And though I said, sorry, I do like to go around the houses. Sorry, guys, if I'm waffling a bit. I wanted to stick with Frank, but I don't know what he's playing at. And I don't think he knows what he's playing at. He doesn't appear to have a plan. I thought against Bournemouth, we played a lot better than we had the previous games and that sort of thing. And did you notice that when they brought the subs on, it was one at a time? And it seemed a lot better than when he brings on 3 subs at a time. Hello? Did you notice?
Yes.
Yeah. And but that was forced into him rather than making a full decision on it. Why have they got to change the whole team at the same time?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, Phil. It was about injuries, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's very sad. I'd just like to mention, just going a little bit off topic, which is, I know, is really unusual for me, is my best wishes to the Chivers family and also to the Yorath family.
Yeah.
Martin Chivers was the first striker I saw live. It shows how old I am, but and we owe him more than just all those goals and everything and the success of the early 70s. He also discovered Hoddle, which people don't mention. He discovered Hoddle when he was presenting some cups to a school kid game with Ray Evans. And if it wasn't for Martin Chivers, a great servant, I think he's an ambassador at the club and that sort of thing. The first Tottenham team I saw, half of them are no longer with us. It's very depressing. And that's what we should be worried about more than the club, because we've just gone off the club. It's just bullshit. You know, contracts don't seem to mean anything. Fabio signs a contract a couple of months ago or whenever, and now he's going back to Italy. Maybe they can throw him in jail this time. I don't know. I mean, they were talking about the left-sided player. Maybe, Chris, you know more about this. Manos Solomon was unfortunate with injuries and everything else, but why wasn't he kept here? Why didn't they give him a go? Any ideas?
Well, apparently in the summer, he wanted to impress Thomas Frank, and Thomas Frank wanted to see what he was all about, and it didn't work out. And then obviously he went out the door. So some players are just not required by certain managers, and Brennan Johnson is an obvious victim of that as well.
Well, it's quite unbelievable because he must be absolutely going home each night after every Tottenham game and pulling out the champagne, because there must be if they couldn't do anything to get in that team, there's something seriously wrong with his eyesight, worse than mine. It's not. We had more passion and we played better when we got relegated, and that's saying something. And I was there, 77.
Someone actually said this to me earlier, Phil, saying, what on earth would it be like for the club to be relegated? I wasn't actually born, when we got relegated. So
yeah,
if you remember,
while he's down, thank you.
If you remember that, someone did write old git. I weren't going to say it.
Yeah, that's all right. I'm called that all the time. That's what my ex-wife used to call me.
What was that like? Talk us through that moment, the Spurs being relegated, because it just seems unbelievable for that to happen to a club of our size.
Well, I was 13 at the time, 76, 77, but it was, you've got to remember, just a couple of years earlier, Man United had got relegated, and then they came back, and it was like, sometimes it was better getting a team that was a lot better than the second division sides than it was being a poor first division side. And that year in the second division was absolute joy. We were scoring goals left, right, and centre. And I remember we slapped all the way down to bloody Charlton. And we lost 4-1. And we came back and we needed to win to stay on top or stay in the top three or whatever. And they signed Colin Lee from Torquay for 60 grand in the middle of the week because Chris Jones and John Duncan were injured or not doing their stuff. And we, of course, beat Bristol Rovers 9-0, and he scored 4 goals. Even Ian Moores, who was the worst centre forward who ever played for Tottenham, scored a hat-trick that game. And, I'd even think about having Ian Moores now, God rest his soul. Another one gone. It was, the whole point was, and I sound like I'm repeating myself, a grumpy old man, yeah, is that it was all about entertaining the audience, entertaining the supporters, playing football that you're attacking and you're attacking and you're attacking. And that's entertainment. I don't go to see the goalkeeper. Vicario is a good shot stopper, but when you watch him, it's like he's posing for the camera rather than actually trying to save the ball. I'm losing faith, not just in my team, but the whole thing about football. It has been snatched away from the normal working man who goes for a little bit of entertainment. It's been snatched away by extortionate prices to get to football. It's been snatched away by the referees and the linesman, and excuse the language, fucking VAR. What are they looking at? What do they see anymore? You know, the best games are when you don't notice the referee. But now they want to be all centrally placed. They want to be important for their own egos. It doesn't explain the condition of Tottenham. That's not excuses. I mean, it's just the whole thing. You know, I saw someone saying he's giving up his season ticket after 10 years. My brother's friend is a season ticket holder at the stadium.
Mm.
He went the other day, last home game, and he was the only man in the row. Everything was empty seats. Now, if Vene and whatever are all, and the Lewis family are so concerned, they need to look at that properly. See, because they're not worried about if it's an empty stadium, because most of the tickets have already been sold. They've already got the money. They don't care. But, you know, Daniel Levy got a lot of criticism, and quite rightly. But there's no change in the ownership of the club. It's still ENIC. And it's very depressing. You know, if my antidepressants weren't so expensive, I'd go out and get some. It's a nonsense. Postecoglou got sacked for less. And I expect the manager to do something about it. That's what he's paid for. But Frank has got the mentality. You don't see teams like Liverpool, Man City, Arsenal, Chelsea, Arsenal, change their methods of playing football. Because they'd say the opposition, if you're playing teams like Brentford or Palace or even Bournemouth, they say they've got to worry about us. But Frank, unfortunately, has a small club mentality. That's why he chops and changes every day. So we got to chop and change because we're playing this team or that team. And he's very good. Brentford do very well, mid-table side. He just took over a club that won the second senior... Sorry, am I tiring you? No. Senior competition in Europe. And he had the opportunity to build on that. And he hasn't built on it at all. And if it... You know, I can't keep getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning to watch this drivel. And I expect the players to take responsibility as well. Stop fighting around like bloody kids and get up there and implement your training. Because if they're training like that, then they've got to be something seriously wrong with the manager and what he's watching and his team. Am I that wrong? I've done more waffling than Alex did, haven't I?
That's what these shows are about, Phil. What I would say, lastly, is that
you're cheaper than a psychiatrist.
I think it was it last year or the year before? I did a great interview with, and I say great interview because he was such a great guest, with Alfie Conn, and he.
Alfie Conn, yeah.
You've reminded me because he spoke in great detail about the players coming out at White Hart Lane, and they knew that they had to perform. He said that it was all about entertainment. That is what it was about. People were coming to be entertained. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, oh, thank you. A pleasure. Always happy to assist. You know, bring back all my memories that are all in sepia at the moment.
Phil, can I just ask you a question? And I hope you don't mind me asking this. And I don't mean this in a rude way.
Yeah.
You've always come on and you've given your points. Today, you do seem extra grumpy. What's tipped you over the edge to be this grumpy today?
The fact that I had to get up at 4 o'clock in the bloody morning and then wait for an hour to get on didn't help. But
Okay.
it's also, I can't, because we're not entertaining.
Yeah.
We're not. This is my team. This has been my life. I've been supporting them since the day I was born, since 1963. My first memories of actually going to a game were in the 1969. My dad used to let me go to the reserve games, the football combination, as it was called then.
Yeah. And
one of my earliest games was the Notts Forest game when we beat them 6-1, 1970. And they never, what's funny is that we've never seemed to have been the same since they changed the to dare is to do motto from the Latin. Sounds funny, doesn't it? It was or dare, whatever, and it seemed a bit more flashy, a bit more classier. Nothing wrong with the English language, obviously. It's the only one I know, except for French, which I learned watching Tottenham. Maybe we need to get a little bit of that class back. But we need people who love the club, who have a passion for the club and have the strength to stand up and work hard for the club, because we're not talking about players who are on £100 a week anymore. This is the ultra rich now. And to be honest, if I had the choice, I'd also have. No, I'm not going there. Not going there. Maybe Porro, if he was so angry with that fella in the crowd, should have done an Eric Cantona. Yeah, I could have helped him. I'll change my name to an Australian name, and so I'm Bruce Lee rather than Phil Lee. Then he could have done a hijack kick into the thing there.
Phil, I hope you're feeling better soon. I hope you're feeling a lot happier soon. And I say that, I hope all of us are feeling a lot happier soon. Getting back to winning ways at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on Saturday in the FA Cup. You want to give it just very, very, very quickly, Phil? Just give me a score prediction for the game. I
don't know. To be honest, it's almost, we're going to put ourselves up for all the different competitions. I can't see. Aston Villa will probably play a second string team, and they'll still have more passion than our players. And I wish the players watched this program and listened to the supporters. There is something seriously wrong. You can't keep. If you're a normal working person and you were producing that sort of work in your everyday job week after week, would you still be in that job? Yeah? And if Frank is an idiot enough to drink a bloody cup of coffee from someone who hands it to him with Arsenal on it, he not only has blinkers when he's watching the game on the pitch, he's got blinkers in life in general. And it's a shame, because he's a very nice chap, it seems. Just one question for you, Chris.
He might have made that tea or coffee himself.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, we would, because anyone else making it would have probably pissed in it. Just want to...
Phil, you're on a real grumpy day today, aren't you?
I make the Incredible Hulk look like a fluffy bunny. I just want to ask one question.
Go on.
The camera caught you at Bournemouth the Bournemouth game.
No, it wasn't me. I don't know why
It
people thought
looked
that
like
was
you.
me.
It must be a twin.
It definitely wasn't me. It definitely wasn't me. No,
Because I thought, well, that's a bloody good seat to sit in front of Harry Redknapp. I was going to ask you to bring him back.
Someone did actually, although I did see Harry Redknapp yesterday, a very brief
Did you have a
meeting,
chat
but
with him, see if he can come back?
didn't get the chance to have a chat. It was just a very quick hello, but no, someone else or a few people sent me this picture and said, "Oh, you're there," and I'm like, "No, that's not me." And then they're like, "Oh yeah," so no, it definitely wasn't me, Phil. Phil, like I said, I hope you're smiling again very soon. Yeah, so
I always smile. I try and bring the humour in, even when it's very, very dark.
Yes.
You know?
Well, thanks for joining us.
Fortunately, the sun's come up now.
Yep. Perhaps go back to bed for an hour or two, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, Happy
Cheers.
New Year. It can only get, when you're bottom, it can only get better.
Well, we're not bottom yet. We're not bottom yet. There's no chance of that, actually. We won't be bottom this season. Right, we'll speak to you soon. Cheers. Right, we're now going to go to Canada to speak to John. John, how are you?
I'm still okay. Still getting on. That's for Phil. There's my mouse pad, and it's in Latin.
Love it. Love it. Well, at least you're smiling. What do you make of the way that Phil's feeling right now? Are you feeling the same?
Well, yeah, I'm older than him, so I've got every right to feel like he does.
We've saved the best till last. The old gits are on last.
The old gits on last. The gooner in my life has gone upstairs. I don't know. How do I feel? I feel tremendously sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. The club's obviously in turmoil. The fans are upset, and I understand that. They pay a lot of money to go watch it. I mean, I'm less expensive for me, but if my son and I go up to the CAF to the where the Spurs club meet for a game, we're into $100 for breakfast and beer, and he doesn't drink beer, but I am, and so that's not cheap. And yet these guys, you guys are I don't know what it costs you to get to Bournemouth now and get back from Bournemouth. And now I can understand them being upset. And as what Phil said, we're all being dished up dross every week. There's not been a bit of excitement at all about the whole frigging year. I look at Thomas Frank. And I say to myself, has anybody taken his blood pressure? Because he looks like a candidate.
He looks
right
drained.
Now.
He looks tired and drained, John. And I must say,
absolutely,
that when he says that he is working, round the clock, he's working 24 hours. I tell you what, that guy, I think it's pretty obvious that he is trying to do his absolute best. Yes. At the football club. I don't have any doubt about that.
Yeah, I'm sure he does. And he's trying to hang on to what he's got. And my concern, he's going to crash. But there we are. We've all seen this before in other fields in other places. So my hope for the Spurs fans are for him at the moment, lay off guys. Aston Villa's the opposition, not him. Mm. That's all. I don't want to change at this juncture. I feel, we've got to go through at least to the end of the year. If we do need a change, here's an idea for you. Ryan Mason is available. Left West Brom last week. He's been a temporary manager, twice or three times now. Ask Ryan to come in and hold the fort. And get somebody on a jet to the United States and find Poch and get Poch tied down for next season. If Poch doesn't want to know, then somebody get on a plane and go to Hungary and see Robbie Keane. Those would be my hopes, my aspirations, shall we say, at this point. But going forward this season, well, we're halfway. It doesn't look very good, does it? And I think it was the first lad on who said, Arsenal are up there, and dare I mention their names? Please don't shoot me for that. And we're down here struggling, and that is part of the aggravation, I'm sure. And we're going to get it going forward now. And someone's got to do something to change this around. I hope it's Thomas Frank for Thomas Frank's sake, but I don't think he's getting much support. And I can see the frustration in Christian Romero. Don't think he was right, but I can see his frustration.
What did you make of the players going over to the away end after the Bournemouth game, John? Because like Thomas Frank said after the game, everyone is emotional. Everyone is feeling it. You know, no one likes losing football matches, particularly in the dying seconds, especially with a player that we wanted to sign, were interested in signing, and he kindly rejected us. So yeah, what do you make of the interaction with players arguing with fans at the end?
Well, I didn't hear what was said.
And neither did I. And I'm not going to make something. I'm not going to make something up to say. So, you know, there was shouting going on, and clearly the players were unhappy with what these guys were saying. It's as simple as that.
Okay. Well, I hope they were. Well, if they were abusive, then either of them were. Either side was abusive. Then they got all that was coming their way. You know, everybody's entitled to an opinion. This is still a free society where people can express opinions, and you can say to the player, "You let us down. You let us down badly." If they were getting abused like that, then walk away, for crying out loud, and don't do an Eric Dyer and jump in the crowd and go after the guy.
Is it unfair on Mickey van der Ven to be targeted in that way?
No, Mickey van der Ven is my hero at the moment, and he plays with passion, doesn't he? He plays with more passion than any of that lot across the front line. I certainly see I see no very little passion coming out of any of those three forwards, except perhaps Richarlison, who tries to put a shift in. The others I see standing around. And why the heck we paid all that money to bring that guy in from Bayern Munich? I know he scored yesterday. Makes no sense to me.
You're not a fan of Polina?
Polina, yeah, I like him. He's all right.
Oh, you mean Tell?
Tell, yeah. I'm sorry, I don't remember names now, Chris. I'm very sorry. I have to sort of, what's this guy's name? So, yeah, Tell does not impress me at all. And the lad we got on loan from Paris Saint-Germain, well, hang on, sunshine. I think we should be sending you back. You're not doing anything, and we won't send him back because we're in short supply. But heck, we certainly haven't set the world on fire, have they?
Are we a better team, John, this season than last season under Ange Postecoglou? And let's face it, people can go through the injuries. We've had a lot of injuries this season. We had a lot of injuries last season. What football did you prefer watching? Last season under Ange or this season under Frank?
I think I much preferred Ange. But there again, you remember I was an Ange person, Ange in right to the very end last year.
Well, do you think the football has improved? Do you think
no
things have improved under Thomas Frank? And if so,
no.
what?
No, I don't.
Okay.
The back line may be a little bit more strong and solid. Yeah. And we are wobbly at left back. Okay. But I've got no problem with Porro, Christian Romero, Van der Ven. I think they are superb defenders. Generally, I think Archie Gray and I'm sorry, the Danish, the the Swedish lad we got, I think Vogval, sorry, again, I can't remember names, are an asset and great future potentials, and give everything they've got. And the lad who scored the second goal yesterday, I know he's only on loan. He's in there shoving them around, doing very well. Thank you very much. Where we're lacking is anybody up front with a bit of punch. They're not putting out at all.
John, last question for you. I want to talk about the FA Cup game on Saturday. How are you feeling ahead of this one? And I'm going to ask you this with the deepest respect, because you're an older guy. What does tell me what the FA Cup means to you? Because I was having this conversation with someone yesterday. When you talk to the older people, the older generation, they talk about the FA Cup with such fondness, and everyone, you will remember that, everyone used to sit down and the FA Cup would be like the FA Cup day. Everyone would make a whole day of it. How do you feel about the FA Cup kind of being sort of dismissed by some clubs and putting out weakened teams?
Well, more for them. The last Saturday I spent in the UK as a resident was May the 3rd, 1975, and I left on the Thursday. And I went to see. I got a ticket for the West Ham Fulham final. This was Alan Murray, Bobby Moore playing for Fulham, and Harry Redknapp was in the West Ham team. It wasn't a great game, but it was a great occasion for me. And I remember walking away from Wembley, down Empire Way towards the Tube, and I'm looking around. And of course, I'm leaving the country in a few days, and I said to myself, I'm going to miss all this. I know it wasn't Tottenham, but I'm going to miss all this. And I looked up at the old stadium there at Wembley, and I'd been in White Hart Lane two games before that, just to say goodbye. And the FA Cup is that glorious thing that we should never let go. And for many years here, it was the only bit of live football we had. We used to have parties and barbecues, and of course it's a lunchtime thing, and we'd have a barbecue and a few beers, and it was the only bit of live football we had.
Yeah,
and that cannot be thrown away. It's getting to Wembley for the final is an occasion, and striving to get to Wembley is all important.
Yeah,
and I remember 61. I was a kid at 61. I'd been all over with my paper round money. I'd been, everywhere. I remember lining up outside Tottenham at 6 o'clock on a Sunday morning to get a ticket, for a game. I think, and then going to Aston Villa for the semi-final against me, and then couldn't get a ticket for the final. We couldn't get a ticket for the final. They had a draw for the 8,000 fans to go. Of course, I didn't get one. Yet there was the Prime Minister on the TV. There was the Archbishop of Canterbury. There was all these people who'd never been to a football ground in their lives, and that had to change, and thankfully it did. But if we throw that out, and we think, it's no longer important, then we're in trouble. Throw away the League Cup, that Carabao Cup. I ain't got time for that. That's a money maker. But let the lower divisions play for that, if you like, and give them the competition and give them the day out at Wembley. I remember being in Wembley, I think it was 73 in the League Cup final. The gooner I'm married to was waiting to go into labour. I was pooping bricks, so I wasn't going to be called back. I wasn't. Those are the memories. The memories of going to Wembley we got to keep, and getting to Wembley. Those special occasions.
Mr. Mark N17 says here, I like hearing old stories, and so do I, John. So thanks for sharing them. And I'm gonna on a future show, I'm gonna ask you more old stories. And
Well,
I'm sure
I tell you what, Phil. I tell you what, get Phil and I and all the old farts to write them down.
Yeah, get you all on together,
and we get them all together, and then you can put them on a website or something for people to read.
Yeah.
But
or we just get you on a podcast and we call it the old Gits podcast, and we get you all the old boys on talking about the old times. It'd be great.
That would be nice. That would be very nice.
Yeah, we'll make it a date, John.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll speak soon.
Thank you for all you and Craig do for me. I appreciate it greatly.
Cheers, John.
Take care.
Have a good day. Cheers.
Bye.
Right, we're now going to go to Tim. Tim, hello. How are you feeling?
Confused and worried for my club as always. I mean, where do you start, really? It just seems a complete shit show, doesn't it, all the way around? And I think that's the problem, really. It's not just the team, it's not just the manager, it's the board, it's the middle level people. It seems to be all over the place everywhere.
It's never an easy conversation, is it? With somebody who don't support Spurs, they go, "What's the problem?" And you're going, and that's exactly. I did this earlier to someone and just gone like, "Oh," and then you're thinking, right, where do I start? And then you're trying to start, and then you're like, "Yeah, but this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this." I think you feel the same.
Oh yeah, totally. I think it would. I mean, with Frank particularly, it's becoming increasingly clear that it's problematic. I will say there's been a slight improvement, but that's not great, right? It's just a slight improvement. Yesterday was okay, and we could have nicked it. And in fact, if we'd have had better finishes, we should have nicked it. But in the end, really bad defending, we lost the game. But I suppose rather than getting annoyed, I think it's like a lot of Spurs fans, apart from Gary last night, who completely lost the rag right, didn't he, last night? Just feeling just disappointed the whole time. It's kind of gone past annoyed to disappointed, and just like, head in hands going, really, again, another bad part. There's lots of bad passing going on, getting good positions, and away we'll pass. And it's, I think it's just symptomatic of a whole load of problems going on. Even the teacup gate, right? Which is a nothing thing, really. It doesn't bother me, but it just is another nail in a coffin, isn't it? It's just like, oh, come on, really? That's it.
It's obviously bothered a few people, Tim, because I only mentioned it to the first guest. And I thought, on this fan show, I'm going to mention it once. And as you know, on these fan shows, you guys come on and talk about whatever you want to talk about. And a couple of you have brought the teacup up. Has it bothered you?
No, I see what it's like a symbol of where Spurs are at. It's like it's not even a big error. It's just a really crap error that's been overlooked. It's the sense that, okay, for me, it's like a symbol. I'm going to read into this way too much. It's kind of a symbol of, it feels like our heritage is being kind of washed away at the moment in our idea of like corporateness and modern football. And that was a symbol of people not caring enough about the details about things. And I think that's the way the whole thing seems to be going. It seems to have become, and I was a great fan of Levy, right? Just to create a kind of sustainable, good business. But he's never been a football guy. I know that. And he's never been a Spurs guy. So he needed someone beside him who was a Spurs guy who could, almost like with a country, you got a prime minister and a monarch or a president. He's like the prime minister running the business. You needed someone with some gravitas to go, well, no, that's not what Spurs do. We don't do that. We are an entertaining. We can get away with a lot, but we need to entertain people. We need a few, Hoddles, Janolas, Greaves, Chivers. We need those players, Kane. And what we can't do is treat it purely as a business, that if we get these young players in and hope they might get better, we struck it lucky with Poch a lot. And I think they kind of hope that the same business model would happen, and it's not. You can't keep buying young players hoping they'll get better, because they don't. So my worry is, although I don't think Frank's got it in him, to be honest with you, he makes too many mistakes both on and off the pitch. He seems to not get it, particularly, like you said, he walked over to the crowd and didn't seem to think that he'd get booed, or that he says things in press conferences which are patently either untrue or completely, misread. Like he'll say, "Oh no, I thought we played quite well today," and literally everyone else is going, "Well, no, you didn't at all play really well." So I think who spoke about the idea of communication and just being honest, and that's for me is the crux of it. It's like the idea that it's not getting stuck in an airport that you get pissed off about. It's stuck in an airport and not being told what's going on. And that's how it feels like to me. I'm stuck in this never-ending delay of an airport and not really know what's going on. I'd rather they came up, manager, director of football, CEO, and go, "I tell you what the score is here. We have got this much money. We're still paying off a stadium, ... We're not going to be able to spend that," rather than doing a kind of political, we're going to be fighting all fronts. Well, you're not, are you? You're not going to be fighting all fronts. And in fact, if it goes badly this Saturday, we're not going to be fighting on any fronts, to be honest, because we're not going to win the Champions League and we're not going to win the league. So I think it's the idea. I'm going to, I'll give it to Kuti and say, that's how I feel, that I'm being lied to constantly, that I'm being played. Just be honest. Just be honest. So look, at the moment, we haven't got the money, the talent or anything, and we're kind of mid-table, but we're going to work through that. And this is our plan. But what they're saying is quite the opposite. No, we're doing all right. And I think that bothers me the most. And you can see, you must be able to see it last night, that players are getting really, really frustrated, like really frustrated with each other, with the crowd, with the referee, with the manager.
I said earlier, Tim, it seems that the players aren't enjoying it. Frank certainly isn't enjoying it. The fans aren't enjoying it. And that's the sad reality of it, that nobody is enjoying it at the moment. No one seems to have a smile on their face. No,
and even when we've been a mediocre side throughout my decades of of being with Tottenham Hotspur, supporting Tottenham Hotspur, I've never felt a sense of that I've not enjoyed it. Even in kind of really averagey sides, there's always been a sense that people have gone for it, enjoyed it, a sense of occasion, and it doesn't feel like that. It feels really, really flat, which is worse than being annoyed, really. And you can see why players are getting frustrated. I think Mickey and Kuti are kind of our team leaders, if you like, and they're getting very frustrated. I'd be frightened that we'd lose both of those. And their kind of passion is almost anti-Frank, who just doesn't seem to have any passion whatsoever. And maybe it's lost in translation, etc., etc. But he just doesn't seem like a manager, like, I'm going to stop saying, Poch, but someone like Harry, he'd say it as it is, right? He'd tell you to shut up and we're doing our best, but this is just the way it is. And then you hear a great long list of injuries now, and, our midfield's down to bare bones. And we're thinking, oh, God, is this last year, but worse? And that's kind of how it feels to me. It's last year, but worse. And I suppose one of the issues I've got is, although I want to give Frank time, I really do, there's no real sense of direction about where this is going. Because when their backs is against the wall, it just seems to get fractious, bad passing, bad decision-making, bad subs, and then, getting injuries again.
Tim, lastly, where do you see us at the end of the season? What do you think how do you think it's all going to pan out?
I think it will be a less than bang average season. We will float around mid-table. We won't really get in the top half of the table. And then Frank will be gone at the end of the season and we'll get Poch. Probably. Because I think that's the only saving grace with this board. It's like a kind of win-win for them. I don't think they can get rid of him. I think because of now the injuries are stacked up yet again, we won't we won't be good enough to get anywhere near. I'd have been happy with about 8th, 7th or 8th, which is not, exactly shouting from the rooftops. I don't think we'll get anywhere near that. I think we'll be 12th or 13th. And lastly, from me, I think if we go out the FA Cup this weekend to anything but a really good effort to try and win that game, I think it will be the loudest boo you'll ever hear in that stadium. And the board may have no way back, because the other thing is, of course, if you're getting more and more and more empty seats, it's going to start hitting them in the wallet, and they may have to make a decision financially rather than one based on football, which maybe that goes with the way the club's being run anyway.
Mm. Do you know what? Every single fan show, we get various guests talking about Pochettino. And what I would say is, if you were him and you had the opportunity to come back, and he's, said a couple of times, hasn't he? I'd like to go back there one time. It's unfinished business. Could you imagine him walking into the club, no matter who is the chairman, CEO, the board members, sporting directors, whatever? Can you imagine the amount of questions that he will have second time around, and saying, look, I said in 2019 about the lack of furniture in this great mansion. Can you imagine the questions that he would have and the assurances that he would want?
Yeah, I think that's it, really. It would just be writing in big, bold, felt tip blue, "I told you so," because that's exactly what it was. No matter if it's Poch or someone else, I think it would take a huge amount of persuasion. I think most managers, even Poch probably, might not want to touch us with a barge pole, because we're that much of a basket case at the moment, and the managers are not being backed. And they're being backed a little, but not to any great degree. One of the issues might be he might be the only person who would be able to say, "I'll come, but I'll have to have this," and they might be in such a deep hole that they're going to do it. But I just don't think this board is able to take a risk. They just seem completely risk averse, and maybe they picked the perfect manager for that, who also seems completely risk averse. No daring, no doing. Let's just play the game and everything's fine. Everything's fine here. But yeah, I think that you'd want to be in that boardroom when Poch walked through the door, wouldn't you? That would be a very long and interesting meeting, and it would be like a very long fan show about him telling them exactly what they've done wrong, and they saw it coming 6 years ago. The worry is, Chris, right? Are we losing Spurs, as in the Spurs we know and love, the ones we can cope with losing as long as they play well? I want to win, by the way, but I also want to see good football. Are we losing that Spurs? Does that worry you, that we're going to lose it to a corporate, no risk?
No, I think the fans will always demand that, and I think that noise will always be very loud. That is exactly what the fans expect and demand.
I hope so. Yeah. I mean, I certainly would when I'm standing on the terraces. We're sitting on the terraces. Yeah. I think I would. Well, big call out to everyone. Keep demanding it. Never give in. Never put up with second, and never put up with mediocrity.
Well, we saw what happened when a number of the clubs tried to get us in the European Super League. A number of fans stepped up and made themselves heard, which was great.
Yeah. We're bigger. When they said there's nothing bigger than the club, that it also includes the owners of the club. The club is ours; it's not theirs, and always will be.
Like I've always said, Tim, the fans are always there. The board members, chairman, managers, players, they all move on. We are always here.
Always here.
Tim, always a great guest. Thank you so much. And we'll talk to you again very soon.
Have a great show, mate.
Cheers. Right. I'm going to go to my final guest of this fan show, and I'm going to go to Gary. Gary, haven't spoken to you in a while. How are you?
I'm very good, Chris. How are you, mate? You okay?
All good. All good. How are you feeling after the 3-2 defeat against Bournemouth? What did you make of the performance, first of all?
I'll be honest with you. I didn't think the performance was too bad. I thought, we saw a vast improvement from what's been going on in previous games. It was just a result in the end. It was a real kick in the nuts, right to death. It was written in the stars, wasn't it? It'd be Semenyo. It was just. But I thought the performance itself. I thought Tell played very well. Why he doesn't get more opportunities, I'm not too sure. because every time he plays, he seems to play quite well and seems to link up well. And what I really like about him is the effort he puts in. You know, he seems really tigerish and he really wants to sort of put the effort in, and he's got grit and determination. So, but yeah, in answer to your question, I thought we played okay. It was just a result, but I think obviously it goes a lot deeper than that, doesn't it? The issues at the club, it's not about one game, it's about the whole overall package as it sits at the moment.
Gary, what do you make of the Christian Romero post on Instagram? And then, of course, it was edited. What do you make of him giving a huge dig to the board yet again?
I'm kind of, if I'm honest, I'm kind of torn on that one a little bit, because a part of me says you should stay in your lane, you know, sort yourself out on the pitch, be a captain, do your job. But the other side of it is, you know, he's only saying what everyone else is thinking at the end of the day. You know, I think we're all feeling the same way. We feel like we've been lied to. We feel like we've been promised the world and been given nothing. You know, so, and the players clearly are very frustrated. You could see that at the end of the game. You can see it during the games. You know, it's just a farce at the minute, isn't it? It's just all over the shop. No one seems to want to take responsibility for anything. Is it the board? You know, is it the players? Is it the manager? Is it the fans? You know, it's just almost like everyone's trying to blame everyone else. There's valid reasons to say, well, it is the board, it is this, it is that, but ultimately, it's, you know, we just need to sort it out one way or another. These are meant to be professional people, the people at the board, you know. And from my point of view, you've got to ask the question: what do you aspire to be? Do you aspire to be a mid-table team fighting for top four, or do you aspire to be a top four club fighting for league titles? You know, and it seems to me over the past, God knows how many years, you know, we're a mid-table team fighting for top four, and we've punched above our weight, in particular with Pochettino. And now it's all coming home to roost. The lack of quality signings over the years, you know, the penny pinching, you know, it's really come home to roost. And I fear, Chris, that if we don't sort ourselves out quick, smart, we're going to be West Ham in 18 months, 2 years' time. We are. The downward trend, the spiral, has been so, you know, quick. You know, it doesn't seem to be any stopping it. You know, it's quite worrying, mate. To be fair.
Gary, of course, Spurs are next in action in the FA Cup on Saturday. What does the FA Cup mean to you, and how do you see this game panning out? Because we have heard boos towards Thomas Frank and the players, you know, a fair few times this season at home, particularly. You know, 2025 wasn't a great year for Tottenham winning football matches at home. What do you expect?
Where to begin? To me, the FA Cup is synonymous with Tottenham Hotspur. I mean, I grew up, you know, when we won it in 81, 82, you know, and so forth and so on. You know, I wouldn't say my first memories of football, but my first memories of really sort of understanding what it's all about. I think that the competition, to be fair, has been diminished over the years, which is really unfortunate. You know, like you said earlier, teams put a weakened team out to concentrate on the bigger prize, which would obviously like the Champions League and where the money's at, basically. Yeah. And that in itself is quite frustrating. In terms of the game, I've got fear. As I have going into every game now. I spoke to you before and I said the only time I really felt like we were going to win games, we can't win every game, was under Pochettino. I actually, you know, I haven't enjoyed watching the football this season at all. I think you asked the question to one of the guests earlier, what was worse, this season or last season? For me, it's this season, because we're not going to win a Europa League this season. We're not going to win anything this season. And the football is probably worse, in my opinion. There's been the odd bright spark, but there was under Ange, to be fair, last season. And I think the Villa game may well be the straw that breaks the camel's back. I think if we lose that game, it's not the losing of the game, it's going to be the crowd reaction. Because, you know, at the moment, it's feverish at the minute. It's just waiting to explode, literally. So I think that's going to be the problem on Saturday. Not so much the loss, but the crowd reaction. I think it's just going to be, toxic. It's probably an understatement.
Yeah. Gary, anything else you want to add before we go and end the fan show? You've probably been hearing a lot of fans come on here talking about a number of different subjects. Anything we haven't discussed that you want to perhaps bring up?
I just think everyone's entitled to their opinion. All this, you see it all the time, all this in-house fighting on different YouTube channels, and X is, I won't go near that, to be honest with you. At the end of the day, we're all sort of in it for the same thing. We all want Tottenham to do well. I'm sure you don't want Thomas Frank to get sacked no more than I do. As a person, we all want him to turn it round. We all want the players to up their game. We want the board to put the money where their mouth is, and we all want the club to be successful. So I'd just like to see everyone pull together. I know it's very difficult, but and in reality, it's probably never going to happen. But it's not just Thomas Frank. As much as I don't think he'll be the answer, if I'm totally honest, but it's not just him. There are massive, massive, massive problems in our football at the moment, and we need to get it sorted quick, because it is a serious downward trend at the minute, and has been for a little while, since Poch, basically. We've had a few little ups, it's got a bit better here and there, but certainly over the last couple of years, it's really deteriorated. It's very worrying.
Gary, just a quick one. Score prediction for Saturday, Aston Villa.
Oh, man, I knew he was going to do this. I think we're going to lose, Chris. I really do. But I'm going to say we're going to win 2-1, because I'm not going to be the last person on the show and leave it on a negative note. But I'm going to go 2-1 Tottenham, and I hope Matty's Tell plays.
Yeah. Okay. Gary, thanks so much for joining us, and
No worries, mate.
we'll get you back on the channel very soon.
Top man. Thanks, Chris. Have a good evening.
Cheers. Right, that was our final guest of the fan show. We've been going for nearly 3 hours, so thank you so much to all of the guests for joining us this evening. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Thanks for listening, and let's hope that Spurs can go through to the next round of the FA Cup on Saturday, and Thomas Frank can get Spurs back to winning ways. Have a good week, and I will see you soon. Come on, you Spurs.